Tuesday, November 9th, regular Verona Borough Council meeting. We'll start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Christine.
Nancy Carpenter,
Present.
Dave Matlin,
Present.
Janet Lueldo, present. Sylvia Provenza,
Present.
Trish Hedrick Showalter,
Present.
Raymond Suchovich,
Present.
Joseph Warren,
Present.
David Recupero,
Present.
Craig Alexander,
Present.
Matt Pitch,
Present.
Christine DeRonk, present.
Okay, we're going to start off with a couple of registered comments. And Rhea Homa is first to discuss revisions to zoning language to allow for native plants.
Should be good.
Can you turn that on, please? It's right on the top there. No.
Hello.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And my wonderful spouse, Josh, is sharing a PowerPoint presentation from home. So we'll have something to look at as well. I would like to start off by thanking you for hearing my presentation and taking its information to heart. This topic is very meaningful as we become aware of our interconnection with land and the flora and fauna that live around us and with us here in Verona. When ecosystems are in balance, pollinators can thrive, endangered bird and butterfly species can repopulate, and plants can be used to help mitigate flooding. I hope that what I share in this presentation may help change some verbiage within our borough ordinances. Please keep in mind that I am not familiar with the process that is required to make this change, nor am I very fluent in government lingo. So if I misuse terms, please bear with me. I hope nonetheless I get my point across. Sorry here. I have to tell him when to change slides. For many years, ecologists and scientists have been studying natural and urban ecosystems. These studies post-date the writing of our borough's code. Now, we know that an ecosystem requires a minimum of 70% native or indigenous vegetation to support native life. And native life is important to maintain balance in an ecosystem. Verona is an ecosystem. When this balance becomes disrupted, perhaps through development or use of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, human-made problems begin to emerge. Problems like increase in mosquito populations, increase in rat populations, and increased flooding. Since our code was written before information like this was known, we need to start shifting our codes to reflect the massive benefits of explicitly including native plants and low-impact landscaping within our ordinances. From my many previous presentations about native plants, I'm sure you are all familiar with the concept that more native ecotype plants means more native birds and pollinators like bees and butterflies. This is important because in 2016, it was documented that there were 1.5 billion with a B fewer breeding birds compared to 40 years ago. I believe that is within most of your lifetime. And what is more sad is that 46 species, some of which are within our region, have lost half of their population. There is a clear relationship between the number of native plants in an area that are able to support native caterpillars that in turn support our native birds. In fact, 96% of land-dwelling birds provide caterpillars to their clutches of young birds for sustenance. If you want birds, you need caterpillars. If you want caterpillars, you need native plants. Native plants that can help mitigate flooding are like the blue vervain. Blue vervain naturally, it should be, there it is, it's pictured on the right side of the screen. Blue vervain naturally grows in sunny, moist areas, and not only does it have a very high pollinator value, it is also It also has a super long taproot system that helps mitigate flooding compared to grass lawns and conventional gardens that have more shallow root systems. I see great potential for using native plants like blue vervain and bioswales to manage flooding within Lower Verona. Native plants can also help manage rat and mosquito populations by supporting the natural systems that naturally keep these populations in check. Native vegetation provides food and habitat for natural mosquito predators. So as populations of native bats, birds, and turtles recover within Verona, a natural decline in mosquito populations will also become more noticeable. Similarly, as our local ecosystem begins to repair itself and return itself into balance, native owls, snakes, weasels, and hawk populations will begin to recover, causing a natural decline in rat populations. All of these, I do believe, are problems that we currently have within Verona. I also have a personal experience that motivates my interest in changing code. Josh and I moved into our house during winter in early 2018. As the seasons shifted into spring, I was elated that a native stand of jewelweed began to emerge. If you're not familiar with jewelweed, it is pictured here on this slide. It is a beautiful orange flowering plant that not only is a food source for bees and hummingbirds and later for birds, but it is also medicinal, and there's these fun pods of seeds that burst out of their pods if you touch them. I grew up perfecting how to hold your hand around the pods just so that you can catch the exploding seeds and eat them. They're very fun and they taste like walnuts. Anyways, the stand continued to grow. I was visited by our code enforcer at the time and was asked to cut them down. I was pretty disappointed, but we were new in Verona and I didn't have the comfort level that I now have to speak to my local government about this. I hoped that they would grow back, but they didn't because I cut them before they produced seeds. Truly, the loss of this beautiful, medicinal, and enriching plant still saddens me. I am interested in changing our current code so people who are interested in using native plants in their exterior designs are not met with code violations or situations that end up using valuable time of residents, code enforcers, and others within the system. I want the next person who has a naturally occurring stand of jewelweed or asters or boneset to rest easy, knowing that their native plant is safe according to our code. From here on, I will be discussing ordinances 106-1 ordinances of Borough's current code, 106-1, 154-24, and 154-36, as I believe that these are the most relevant ordinances. I'm only going to read the parts that are underlined for out of respect of time, as well as I think these are the main parts that are relevant. Nor shall he, this is 106-1, prohibited vegetation and nuisance conditions. Nor shall he or it permit any grass or other weeds or other vegetation whatsoever, not edible or planted for some useful or ornamental purpose, to grow or to remain upon such premises so as to exceed a height of 6 inches. Any grass, weeds, or other vegetation growing upon any premises in the borough in violation of any of the provisions of this section. Next slide is 154-24, responsibility for removal and property maintenance. Premises to be maintained free from weeds or plant growth in excess of 8 inches high. Weeds shall be defined as all grasses, annual plants, and vegetation other than trees or shrubs, provided, however, this term shall not include cultivated flowers and gardens. I would like to note that my jewelweed stand was naturally occurring, so it was not covered under this code. The next one is 154-36, maintenance requirements. Letter A, properties subject to this chapter shall be kept free of weeds, overgrown brush, dead vegetation, or any other items that give the appearance the property is abandoned. And B, landscape shall include, but not be limited to, grass, ground covers, bushes, shrubs, hedges, or similar plantings, decorative rock or bark, or artificial turf/sod designed specifically for residential installation. Landscape shall not include weeds, gravel, broken concrete, asphalt, or similar material. I've also come with some examples. This one is from the city of Erie. Oh, I have a little blurb here. Many other towns across PA, including Erie, Ferguson Township, Chester County, and Bucks County, and all across the United States, Maryland, Minnesota, Illinois, Missouri, and Florida, just to name a few, have revisited their ordinances to recognize native plants as a useful resource within their municipalities. I have shared several of these within emails to council members, and these are a few examples of language that may help in drafting. So the city of Erie states under their uniform construction code. The first part is very similar. It's exactly what we have, but then the second part is different. Weeds shall be defined as all grasses, annual plants, and vegetation other than trees or shrubs, provided, however, and this is the part that excites me, this term shall not include cultivated flowers, gardens, and alternative landscapes consisting of native and or natural vegetation such as trees, understory trees and shrubs, wildflowers, ferns and forbs, herbs, flowers, fruits and vegetables, including ornamental, edible and non-edible plants, which are maintained in a manner that does not endanger public health or welfare. The next one is from Ferguson Township, also in Pennsylvania, managed natural landscapes. It is not the intent of this section to allow vegetated areas to be unmanaged or overgrown in ways that may adversely affect human health or safety or pose a threat to agricultural activity. It is the express intent of this township to allow for the preservation, restoration, and management of native plant communities, including but not limited to ferns, and then of course it goes through that whole list again. Lastly, we have Maryland, and this is actually a House Bill, House Bill 322. It was written and passed earlier this year in order to prevent homeowners associations from interfering with those who choose to use natives and other low impact landscaping methods. This is really exciting language, I think. Low impact landscaping means landscaping techniques that conserve water, lower maintenance costs, provide pollution prevention, and create habitat for wildlife. Such techniques include biohabitat gardens designed to attract wildlife and pollinator gardens designed to attract pollinator species. Restrictions on use may not impose unreasonable limitations on low impact landscaping as long as the property owner, 1, owns or has the right to exclusive use of the property, and 2, maintains and regularly tends to the low impact landscaping. Unreasonable limitations on low impact landscaping includes provisions that significantly increase the cost of low impact landscaping or significantly decrease the efficiency of these techniques. Thank you for bearing with me through all that jargon. This information is all very exciting. We've learned that the natural world knows wisdoms that have only within recent years been rediscovered by humans. We are starting to understand that working with the natural system around us, systems that frankly predate our inhabitants of Verona, can be used to help our town and its residents and its businesses and our community flourish. Verona is an ecosystem. Also, while changes are being made to ordinances all over PA, and as I mentioned, all across the US, that recognizes the benefit of native vegetation, to my knowledge, Verona would be the first community in Allegheny County to join these ranks and make this shift. That's pretty exciting. We could be the first in Allegheny County. I also want to be clear that I am not advocating against cultivated or non-native plants. After all, it isn't the presence of non-native plants that is the issue. It is the absence of native plants that is the problem and the motivation for me to stand before you. Lastly, I would like to offer as much help as I can to help Verona reflect this information in our code. I would be very happy to find more language examples or provide additional resources and support. Professor Jerry Dickinson of University of Pittsburgh School of Law has personally offered his law students to help if they may be useful in this process. I also have connections with national lawyers through Wild Ones, which is an amazing nonprofit environmental education and advocacy organization, who may also be reached out to for assistance. That is the information that I prepared for this evening, but I look forward to taking your questions. And also, if you could let me know what the general process looks like to make changes such as this to our borough's code, I would appreciate it.
Thanks, Rhea. That was a great presentation.
I put my heart into it. As I was practicing at home, it was hard for me to not choke up. This is very meaningful to me.
Yes, well, I appreciate you coming here and presenting it. And don't mind them that we have a little camera glitch. You convinced me. So I think that with the ordinance committee, which we have a meeting next week, and our solicitor, we can look at this at that meeting, and maybe you can talk to Trish and get some preliminary verbiage together using these examples. Does anybody on council have any questions or remarks they'd like to ask Rhea?
I don't have any questions, but I think it was a great presentation. I appreciate Rhea, the time you put into that. I think it's worthy of consideration. I did get a chance to see your email and read it, and I think if the ordinance committee could review it, bring something to council to review, I think that would be worth considering.
Thank you. Is there more to the process than that, or is it just kind of like, is there a 30-day waiting period? Is there, I don't know what the process is. Is there a
Okay,
hearing?
correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but I believe the process is we go into committee, we look at the ordinance that this is off Eco 360 that you have.
Correct.
So we look at those ordinances and then we rework them and then eventually bring them back to council. Council votes to advertise it. There's a certain time period that it has to be advertised. And then the next time comes around after the appropriate time, we vote to make it law.
Okay.
Sign off on it. It can take, what, a couple months at least.
It
and
could.
how easy it is. The holidays are coming up, but we do have a meeting. Trish's group that she chairs have a meeting next week.
Thank you for explaining that. Great. Thank you very much.
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Kim Roller to discuss holiday hanging baskets.
Hello, Kimberly Roller. I'm the VP of the Verona Garden Club. I do not have a beautiful presentation, so thank you. I'm just going to kind of talk through this one. So as you know, right now, the Garden Club does baskets during the spring and summer. We would like to extend that cheer that we've been doing during the spring and summer into holiday by developing hanging baskets that can be used throughout all of the light posts in town. That would consist of 44 hanging baskets, all funded by the Garden Club. We would actually be designing them ourselves this year and working through them and building them. In addition, we would have 12 matching planters that would go along the borough, as well as our continued decorations of the pavilion, the viaduct, and the gazebo. Our ask from council and the Borough of Verona would that once we complete 44 hanging baskets, if they could be hung by the Department of Public Works, there would be no required maintenance after these are hung. They would simply be hung and then removed at the end of the season. Could this potentially be done maybe in conjunction with the lights so that we have them up and ready to go for the Jolly Jamboree that is being discussed later this evening? And just to kind of talk through some of it, there are the lights that go up on the light posts on the main center of the street on Allegheny Roof Boulevard. And those lights go this way and the planters go this way, just so that we would know that they wouldn't impede or distract from the lights that go up in the evening. And that's really it. That would be my request, is to utilize some of the DPW's time to put baskets up, take baskets down.
Okay, so I asked briefly the solicitor if we really need to make a motion. We don't really need to do that. We just want to know if anyone has any objections. Are we all in consensus that this is, that we want DPW to put these baskets up and take them
I
down?
have a question.
Yeah.
Dave, maybe you can answer this. When does, who puts up the Christmas lights on a post?
The Public Works Department.
Would that be done before the Jolly Jamboree?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
Maybe we can work this in conjunction together. So they have their equipment out all together, you know, one time each post go up and bing, bing,
do both at the same
do both
time.
at the same time.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm picking up supplies tomorrow for the matching planters. And we're gonna be doing just a sample one to see if we like how it looks, so we can determine how many to do. The goal would be for the garden club to complete these this weekend as we decorate in time for late at night and the Jolly Jamboree.
Do you know when they're putting them up, Dave?
Yeah, that would be a great question.
John, when do you usually put them up for the chamber, the Christmas lights on the poles? Veterans Day is Thursday, so probably like Monday, the 15th.
Yeah.
For the 20th.
That way, if you do that, it would work in conjunction with doing the baskets.
Yeah, I can guarantee that we have them done as long as we can, you know, if you guys wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
That was my primary question too, just to understand as far as logistics go. I mean, we want to do many things, but if we can orchestrate a single event, like you said, Ray, to do that, and the crew is okay to do that, I don't see what the issue would be.
I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, I think for what you had wanted from a response, I guess later last week or over the weekend, just as a matter of process, we're trying our best to do things where it's a system to go through and approval as a council's one. But I would say this makes perfect sense for the holiday season. I'd be in favor of it myself.
I think it seems to me that we're all saying yes, we're all in consensus. It's
Don't need to vote, but I don't.
You're
I don't
putting
see
them,
opposition.
I'm sorry, you're putting them on the back street too, back
We
there?
are gonna put them on the
Because
back
they
street
do
too.
the front street, and so that,
Yep.
what's usually take about a day to do that. So they'll have to have another day to do the remaining of just those, because the chamber we don't put lights in the back, do we, John? No, just on the main drag.
And then
So
aren't
that'll
there,
work.
there's a couple of planners on South and Center too, between ARB and.
That is correct.
East
There's a
Railroad.
total of 44 baskets.
Mhm.
This year during spring and summer, we cut it back to 26 baskets. So we would hope to do all 44, and that way this back street can be fully festive for the Jolly Jamboree as well. Kind of continue our celebration of the 150th.
And we have plenty of time until then, but just understanding how we would take them down, who we provide them to, how you would store them, how you want this to end, because it's great to get up in time, but also as we transition to the next thing to make sure that we're fully communicating expectations for where they go.
Yep, so historically, all of the hanging baskets live in the Borough building, in the garage, if I recall correctly. So they are all back there. We can deal with the plant material. We're hoping to kind of save a bunch of it and use it for the community garden to, chip it or, do whatever we can so that we can do some composting with it. Since these are going to be greens, might be able to figure out a way of handling that, but they, the baskets themselves live in the Borough building in the garage.
They live in the garage, in this garage or the garage?
The dump.
Yeah.
So
It's
can I just recap so that I know what I'm communicating to our team? So the 44 hanging holiday baskets would go up at the same time as the lights, which will likely be the Monday after, or beginning in the Monday after Veterans Day.
15th.
And then on the back side, taking them down, presumably our team could take the baskets down at the same time the lights are coming down so that all happens in conjunction. The garden club is going to handle all of the plant material that's contained within the baskets. And then the empty baskets will come back to the garage for storage until the next go around. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
As I understand it, it might take them an extra day to put the extra baskets up in the back street and the side streets.
Yes. So just beginning on Monday, the 15th.
Right.
And then however long it takes. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your consideration, guys.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks,
Kim.
Thank you, Garden Club.
You
for
can
all
leave it on.
do. No, leave it on. Yeah, thanks.
Hey, you know. we're
Thank
trying
you. Yep. Okay, very good. Let's see where, any emergency additional agenda items at this time from anyone?
I only have a couple of informational things that I can either add now or just in my section, whatever you prefer.
No, your section is good as long as they're informational.
Just
No
informational.
problem. Okay. At this time, council will hear comments on agenda-related items only. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand. Clearly state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody? Any hands? Okay. All right, so, come on up.
Sure. I didn't want to.
No, name and address, please.
John Randis, 734 Brunot Street. I had a question, or hopefully, when you sell one of our trucks, if that money can stay in our department, not necessarily all of it, but something for another piece of equipment, like a skid steer and attachments, just to consider that. That's about it.
Okay,
So, okay.
sounds good.
All right.
We'll be talking more about that
Yeah.
in a few minutes. I
Yeah, I
think.
was just curious. It would help everybody, the whole town and us especially, but equipment for equipment. So,
While you're here, though.
Yeah.
Could you explain a little more in detail what a skid steer thingy is?
it's a small, looks like a bulldozer, has the shovel in front, and the person's right in the middle, and it has attachments, Dave knows.
Yeah,
It's very maneuverable between tight spaces, like we could use it in the parks and for asphalt and everything, basically all around town. It would have, we would ask for a forklift attachment. We could use it for this type of thing with hanging baskets, because we borrow a forklift now.
oh, I see.
That'd be one, and then other would be jackhammer attachment for breaking cement,
Mhm.
and
So-
a shovel.
When you say a shovel, it's one of these?
No, it's a flat, it's a smaller version of the tractor we have, but like I said, maneuverable,
Mhm.
and it would help with snow removal too, if we needed to.
Yeah, in 2010, when we had all that snow,
Mhm.
my son's business let the borough use it for, I think, 3 days to clear the snow around South Avenue, around the ball field, where they needed it.
Mhm.
It did come in very handy.
Yeah,
and
it's practical.
It was at no cost
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
I totally trust you. I just don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
Sure,
So
yeah.
you have to rent sometimes different machinery
Yeah.
from different places
yeah, or borrow.
or borrow
Yeah.
in order to do what this machine would allow you to do
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that it will be an even trade pretty much between the
We,
Peterbilt and the
with the
other?
truck, it might be more, you might get more money for the truck than the skid steer,
Oh, okay.
because the truck has the plow attachment and a salter,
Mhm.
and it's a desirable model. It has no hours or miles on it. It's ready to go. It'd be nice for a little town to buy it, like, even if it was half price from new, still a good chunk of money.
So you guys want to sell it because you don't use it?
Yeah, I mean, we rarely use it. We do equip it for the winter time for, if we have major snowstorms, we could do the boulevard and below.
Mhm.
Within it, it's large, too large.
Mm.
And we don't get in the alleys. I mean, we have used it, but I mean, it's,
Well, it has a commercial driver's license too, right?
yeah, AJ is the only
Right.
one that has it,
So
so,
AJ's the only one that can drive it anyway.
right, yeah.
Right.
But to
yeah.
answer your question, it might have been implied or understood that if you sell one thing from the garage, it's a resource, or, that we would replace it. That was my intention for the agenda tonight
Okay.
I would advocate for that. We do, it's a
Sure.
seller's market now for the vehicle.
Yeah.
My suggestion and for discussion tonight is to assess the higher sale price of it now,
Mhm.
and then use that to get more equipment, better equipment for all of you to use. That,
Okay.
in short, but we'll talk about that later today.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your
Appreciate it.
comment.
Thank you. Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's it right there, yeah. Or it'd be you know, with wheels. Yeah, that's.
Do you
Yeah,
want the wheels over the tracks?
Yeah,
Oh, we would love that.
I
but
would recommend the
I would
tracks.
recommend the track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Are you
Oh,
gonna hang
there's
around
the
for
one
this
with the
evening for
wheels.
what we do discuss, because we
Yeah.
might have more questions when we get there. if you don't
sure.
mind.
Yeah, yeah, there's,
There's a bunch.
And are you looking to get a brand new one or are you gonna look for a
there's,
used one?
you can look up, you know, the prices of new and used.
I can share something on that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we'll
Yeah.
get to that later
Yeah, I'm
then.
sure there's all kinds of options.
Okay,
And I mean, whatever, obviously
Okay.
would be budget. So, all right, thank you.
thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, I guess we'll be moving on now to our monthly financial reports.
Thank you. Everyone should have received the financial reports for the month of October. We have a balance sheet. There's an income statement by month. I'm guessing this was for your request for purposes. Or
No,
provided
mine.
because it's- Okay. Yeah, it's more information, so that's fine. And then the usual budget versus actual report. So just to summarize the budget versus actual, the total income for the year, January through October 31st, in the general fund is $1,825,853.12, which is 88.79% of the budget. Total expenses, January through October 31st, the general fund is $1,361,358.00, and that is 67.62% of the budget. Some large receipts we had this month were the sale of the Ford Explorer police vehicle in the amount of $9,200. We had the typical Oakmont Municipal Authority sewer rental fees in the amount of $108,223.14. And then we had the Riverview School District 2021 second quarter crossing guard reimbursement in the amount of $4,719.92. And then moving on to the bills. Actually, I'll stop. Does anyone have any questions so far?
We reimburse for a crossing guard support.
Yeah, we Riverview School District pays half of the crossing guard payroll. It's been in place for quite a while. We weren't collecting it for quite some time. I think last year and early this year. So there was a little bit of a catch up in, I think, earlier this summer that Lisa helped sort out, but we're now on track. I think we're still doing quarterly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we send them an invoice and then they, based on the actual payrolls, and then they send us the amount.
Before you get to bills, can we do the treasurer's report?
I don't usually go over everything on the treasure. I mean, I covered a lot of the stuff already.
Just this. So people know what we brought in or what we spent.
Okay, so for the general fund, we had a beginning balance of $963,136.16. We had actual receipts in the amount of $171,619.39, and actual expenditures in the amount of $349,529.40. Which leaves a fund balance, I think it's an account balance of $785,226.15.
Yeah.
You're just looking for the general fund?
Just the general.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to bills. Total bills for the month were $136,355.34. The large disbursements or expenditures we had were the 2021 police pension, municipal minimum municipal obligation. That was paid out after we received the state aid. And so that was in the amount of $52,034. We had a bill to Senate Engineering, in the amount of $11,423.50 for engineering services. And we had a progress payment for the Cribs Field Pavilion to Pampina Landscaping and Construction, the amount of $36,258. And the last one was the monthly Highmark Blue Shield health insurance bill for the amount of $5,211.61. So at this time, I will make a motion to approve the list of bills dated November 10th, 2021.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. I think that covers it for the bills and finance report.
You're right. Okay, under this section, we're also going to approve the minutes. Everybody received the minutes over the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Christine. She's been working very hard at getting caught up with the minutes. So you have seen copies of the minutes from July 13th, July 27th, and August 10th. Hopefully you had a chance to read them. If you had any comments, you got back to Christine via email about them. I think they look pretty good. And we can make a motion for all three together, right? Yeah. So I'll take a motion at this
I'll
time
make a motion.
for approval of all the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Setrovich, second by, who is over there? Sylvia. Okay, any other questions, comments on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, well, conveniently, I get to continue. Okay, so just to address the topic of our recent election, I want to congratulate all of the winners and wish you all the best of luck. I wasn't one of them, but I'm looking forward to a well-deserved break and vacation. So it's cool. That being said, I think everybody who is new or has been on council and has not had a chance to take advantage of the Local Government Academy course, I've given you all a copy of the schedule. You can learn more by going on localgovernmentacademy.org, something like that, and it'll give you more information. The registration for this course opened yesterday. I strongly urge all of you to take this course. You could carpool, it's convenient, it's in Monroeville. There's only December 4th, there's a class, and then 4 others after that in January and February. The one in December is kind of like fun, get to know people class. But the other 4, it's invaluable, absolutely invaluable. And I think that this council will run a lot better and more efficiently and effectively if everybody who's new could please take advantage of this course. And I do believe, hopefully, we can find the money in the budget to pay for it. And I also think that we qualify for half off with Local Government Academy to pay for this course. So I just wanted to say that one more time now that the election has happened. And I can't stress enough how important I think this is. Moving on the agenda. All I'm going to say at this moment about the Shade Tree Commission is 2 weeks ago, I said we needed to do some research to figure out what happened there. We've done that. We figured it out. I couldn't find anything on record for having officially accepted Kim or Rhea onto the Shade Tree Commission, but there's no problem with doing a motion twice. So just to make sure it's absolutely positively on the books, later on during our motions part of the agenda, we will make the motions for you guys as well as Bridget Siri, and that will complete all of the members of the Shade Tree Commission. Regarding the Planning Commission, Christine, have we gotten any inquiries for applications for that vacancy?
No.
So my recommendation for the Planning Commission would be to put possibly an article in the newsletter, letting people know that this vacancy exists, to continue to get it out to the community and move the deadline back, since the original deadline was November 1st. And the newsletter would probably be coming out right around the holiday. What do people think about moving that deadline back to, say, January 30th or something? And give people time to consider being on the Planning Commission? And, you know, I'll write, or someone, you know, collaborate with some people and write an article for that.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's a letter of interest that would be submitted to the borough building. Just if
Yes,
you're interested.
submitted to Christine, yeah.
That's it.
Mhm. And then, you know, she would let council know, and they'll talk about it and decide. Okay, great. So I'm gonna make a notation there, 1/30/22. And one other informational item that I have here that I didn't think about until after this was out, a similar situation with Parks and Rec. I know that my term on Parks and Rec is up. I haven't decided yet if I want to consider continuing with that or not. I know I have here, Vince, your term is up, but I also don't know what you guys, you and Trish, want to do, given, you know, your recent winning of the election, whether you want to stay on, you can stay on Parks and Rec if you want to. That's one of the boards that you are allowed to be on council and Parks and Rec simultaneously. So we could combine an article about vacancies about the Planning Commission and Parks and Rec. But it would be good to know in the next couple of weeks what your decision would be, and Vince, what your decision would be. As soon as you can decide what you want to do. And then we can say how many vacancies there'll be. I have to decide too, so. So let's all think about what we want to do there. So that's all the information I have right now. Thank you for listening, and Mr. Recupero, Mayor, you're next.
I too have on my agenda comments on the election day. I'd like to congratulate everyone that had won the election. Especially the newcomers, they will do well, I'm sure. Nancy, I know that you had lost, but you was a great asset to the community, especially finding some of the errors that we had through our budget, and bringing Susan Hockenberry on to clarify, you know, those different accounts and getting them straightened out, along with Mr. Matlin. He was a big asset in part of that also, and getting things on the right track. And also to Kelly Collins, both you and Kelly done a very fine job. Both of you were out there hustling, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. You should both be proud. I know your families, you know, are proud of you for coming and stepping up to run, and, you know, to be reelected, Nancy also. But like I said, I appreciate everybody coming forward, and appreciate everybody coming out to vote and voicing your opinions, or voicing your votes, I should say. So congratulations to everybody, and we'll move on from there. The next thing I have is the Christmas parade, the Jolly Jamboree with the light up night. I'll get with Christine. I need to know times when you want the streets blocked off. I'll get with Christine to have the foreman, the street department foreman to put roadblocks out. My department will put them up and take them down, but I need to know what time, because I know it's going to start at 12. I don't know what time you want to start blocking anything off. We usually block the streets off about 4:30 for the parade, back here that is. Then once the parade starts, probably about 10 till 5 till, we'll shut down the boulevard. But I need to know what other areas you want blocked off, you know, if you're starting at 12 o'clock.
So the event is primarily in the park, so I think it's fine to stick with what you have done in previous years to plan for about 4:30 for the streets.
Okay, so everything's gonna be in the park. I will have an officer, starting at 12 o'clock then?
Yes.
I'll have an officer there for traffic, you know, for walking people across the street there. Okay, and we'll be out in pretty much full force.
Dave, is the street gonna be blocked off for parking cars? You have a lot of,
Well, what you mean back here?
yeah,
No, we're just, they'll start lining up at James Street, you know, the parade, and the cars will have to be off the street, along with the boulevard, they'll have to be off the street for the parade.
you're gonna line them up down in Sylvan then.
No, it'd be on Jones Street, or I mean, East Railroad, like we always do. Is the way that, you know, the lineup is. And it's pretty, you know, pretty decent sized parade. It comes all the way up to, you know, the borough building.
Right.
More than likely, the trucks, the fire trucks will be across the tracks, if that's what you're referring to.
So I was getting into floats, I don't know how many floats you're gonna have.
Right. I think Ray Rogers handles, you know, pretty much the parade. We'll have to get in touch with him. I can give him a call between now and next week.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you want to get with him and, you know, see what the plan is, and we can go from
You
there.
know, the fire department usually call me, where are we going, where are we starting off?
Right,
Where are we lining up?
right. So
Okay, thank you.
that's all I have at this time, other than the police report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Next we have Christine Verona, our Borough Secretary.
All right, so this part of my my speaking tonight's pretty short. I have the report from BIU, our code enforcement subcontractor for the month of October. Mike McDermott made one court appearance. There were 25 tip sheets provided, and he inspected all 25. There was one property maintenance inspection and 2 building inspections. And in terms of reporting on the status of all of those, it's a little challenging to do at this time just because they're all in different stages, and it's a fluid situation as he goes and re-inspects, or, you know, people abate or they get an extension to abate. But he's definitely out in the community, checking up on things that have been reported, following up, you know, doing the rental inspections when there's a new tenant, and doing what needs done so the title transfers can take place.
Without detail, what was the outcome of the court appearance?
I believe that one was just a continuance, so it just stays in the loop until, you know, we go another loop through the court system, which my understanding, based on talking to Mike, is pretty common.
Thank you.
Sure. So that was the first thing. The second is just something for consideration as Trish, as you work on the fee schedule, and in general, as we reconsider some of the language in E-Code 360, something came up where a resident had a dumpster and it got reported as being basically an illegal dumpster without a permit. And then when I called to follow up on it, it turns out that dumpster was only on the street for 8 hours because that homeowner was getting a new roof. And so it's kind of like, what do we want to do, if anything, when it's a dumpster really is short term, just for a roof replacement? The current language just says up to 10 days. So, you know, I guess technically that's anything from its placed there up to 10 days. But does it make sense? It's just a question. Does it make sense to require a permit for, you know, a roof replacement when it's there for 8 to 10 hours? So it's just a question. Doesn't need to be answered today.
but it's a thing that's out there and could come up again as residents, want to make home improvements.
I would say even if waived, I would think a contractor would go through that process as part of the service that they're providing, so it's just normal. So even if it's just so we know where there's a presence of dumpsters to just timestamp, because otherwise a dumpster shows up unless someone's counting from day one, you don't know when they start. So I would suggest that we, even if waived as a fee, we do have them register myself. I don't know if that discussion is for now or save for workshop, but I did want to share that.
And also, Christine, in the future, I've seen several dumpsters on the street, and Mark Stanton, the code enforcer in the past, has put in the ordinance, there has to be a cone, an orange cone on the, on the road also, so cars could see it at night.
Thank you.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if if that particular homeowner, if he got it on his own, if they didn't have one, they could come to the office and, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that they could borrow one from the borough, but they would be responsible financially to return it once they're done.
The cone, you mean?
Yes, the cone. It was a safety factor for other cars hitting the dumpster. Some of them are very dark in color.
Okay, thank you.
Just for planning purposes, I also agree with what Joey had stated about the dumpster, even if it's less than one day, but I was wondering if anyone had strong opinions that were different, if they could just voice them now so we can kind of plan with our next ordinance.
I don't have any strong objections, but we have to just pick like less than 12 hours, less than 24 hours, less than 18 hours. But I like Joey's idea of at least registering. So then they register and then it's like a week later and it's still there. So it's, hey buddy, we need, permit money. So that's a great idea. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
My follow-up question on the implementation side is if, and I just don't know, Matt, you might know, if a resident wants to replace their roof, it's my understanding you don't need a permit for that.
Correct.
So this could be hard to enforce just because we won't know if residents are planning on replacing a roof until a dumpster potentially shows up. And then somebody needs to see it and report it and so on and so forth within, that 8-hour span. So, I think it's a good idea. I'm just also saying it might be really hard to actually implement because they're not pulling a permit for the other work. And I don't know what to do about that, but that's just a statement.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Do you have a recommendation of 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours? What do you think would be good?
I don't know. I don't know that I have an opinion about that. Before nightfall, so that, people come home from work and
So that,
it's gone.
so that it would be like 12 hours then.
Yeah, something like 12
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. Everybody, does that sound good? 12 hours?
Is that for removing the dumpster? Let's say if you're putting a roof on?
Yeah, they get there at 7 a.m. in the morning and they get rid of it by close to dark at 7 p.m. And if it's longer than that, then they pay the fee.
The reason why I'm asking that is because if I'm getting a dumpster and if they're gonna deliver it at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and they're done with the dumpster by 2, 3 o'clock, and you call the company, they may not be able to come out and get it that day.
Having recently gotten a dumpster, I would agree with that. I think the committee can discuss the smaller details of it, but the idea
Right.
is, for the removal to charge or not, but I think you need to look at it on the contractor side of it or the homeowner side of it to what is the timeline it's actually used? If you're rained out and you have to do the next day, do you incur a huge cost or not? But I believe it to be enough to start discussion with the committee to bring back to full council.
Yeah.
Myself.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Another item that I wanted to just state, and if there's a significant problem with this, then we'll have to have a follow-up. Janet, you had mentioned a couple meetings ago that the Porta-Johns in Riverbank are to stay, but the one in Cribs was to go away after
the Thanksgiving weekend. And I did speak with Mr. John, who's the contracted company. And right now, well, next week, they're starting to switch over to their like winter model. And so it's a non-flushing model. So when they change out the riverbank unit next week, it'll go to like what I think of as a regular like porta-john kind of thing, which is not flushing. And same with cribs, because it's basically weatherization issues. So with respect to the one at cribs, we can keep it or we can get rid of it and save the money, given that the bathrooms are up, the cameras are up, the bathrooms are unlocked. I don't know that anybody's going to choose to use a porta-john over an actual bathroom. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I could take it out.
Take it out?
Yeah, for the winter be
Yeah.
done, yeah.
And
Okay.
they'll be winterizing the bathrooms after Thanksgiving, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So go to cribs.
Cribs will be closed, so.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just to be clear, there'd be no return of a portalet in the spring. It's gone because the construction's complete.
I mean, that's my understanding. Janet,
That'd
that's
be
yours?
great.
And then 12 months of the year, we'll have the rental of the portalet, which will be winter version coming up soon over at the Riverbank Park. And that's year round.
I do have a wish that there would be somewhere else they could put it other than where it is. And I'm just gonna state that, we could talk about it some other time, but it's really placed right front and center of the park. It's pretty awful. So,
Can you get recommendations when they replace it to see if they would see where in other communities they put them versus where we have it now?
I can, but I also think that they're not going to want to make that decision on behalf of the borough, and that we should probably be the ones to decide where a better location would be. Plus, if they decide some location we really don't like, then we're just living with it.
Just to hear the recommendation not to do it, but just to
Okay.
understand. Because I would assume if I'm dropping off a portalet, it's where it's easiest for me to unload it, load it, service it, and leave versus where we want it to be seen or smelled. And is that going to interrupt the pricing of the contract? Will we lose one of them, or is it still the same price to have one?
We actually are invoiced separately for the two locations. So the Cribs one, that invoice will just cease to exist. And I did ask about pricing on the winter model versus the non-winter model, and it's the same.
Thank you.
Another thing that came up today, and it's something that's really worthy of discussion, I've provided it to our solicitor Craig to review, but we can't really do much about it today because it just came in this afternoon. The BIU contract, there was some language that in the contract that was signed, it didn't match the language that was agreed upon verbally, and so I've been trying to work that out. They did send over a revised contract, and I sent over, or I made printouts of the relevant sections. And that's what's called Exhibit A, and it has some notes on the side. Those notes are between myself and Ed from BIU. And there are some new things that showed up in this exhibit that weren't in the previous exhibit. And I'm just trying to figure out, why is there additional language in here? What's the difference there? We didn't necessarily contract for those services. And then there's a question of how are we being billed? Are we being billed hourly for code enforcement? Or we billed, then that was $65 an hour? Or is it $65 per tip sheet? And so that's some things that we're just trying to work out. Craig will review the contract, and, I'll be working with him. And, next time we'll hopefully be able to make a decision so we can sign this contract and have everything cleared up. I have not paid the invoices that we've been given from BIU because there have been some questionable charges related to, errors in the contract. So I'm eager to pay the invoices, but I don't want to actually pay them because they're charging 75 instead of 65 an hour and things like that. So that's what's hanging out there with BIU. And then the last thing, I just wanted to, bless you. I just wanted to send out wishes to Jamie Lavelle, who's with our EMS service. He is having surgery again next Friday, and then he will be out for a couple of months. And so I asked if it would be okay if I made an announcement here. Bless you.
And he said it would be, and he'd appreciate it. So, you know, for those of you that think good wishes or pray or whatever your version is in your life, you can send that out for Jamie for a quick and speedy recovery so he can you know, be healthy. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Christine. Next is the police report.
Okay, this is for October. Complaints received 143, total crimes reported 23, total crimes cleared 19, total persons arrested 7, crime code summary issued 3, vehicle code summary issued is 9, borough code summary issue is 29, borough parking tickets is 81. Magistrate fines collected is $1,357.12. Borough fines and fees collected $495. Police reports purchased $15. Total fines and fees collected is $1,867.12. Parking permit fees collected is $135.
Any questions on that report?
That, Mayor, that first column under revenue sources, that's for the month, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it says 2021, so,
Right, that's just for the month.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
It does look like comparing magistrate fines between 2020 and this year, we've collected quite a bit more.
Well, don't forget, you know, during the COVID too, a lot of people weren't traveling and, you know, things like that.
Yeah,
Businesses not open and.
but anyway, thank you for that report.
Yep.
Mayor, was there an update about the incident?
Yes, I was gonna bring that up too. The incident at Cribbsfield, the chief is looking into the cameras. He hasn't come up with nothing yet. Some of the officers are, you know, kind of putting a feeler out there. I know Officer Saranovich is talking to kids. And so that's an ongoing investigation right now, but hopefully we will find, you know, the person that did that and get restitution and, you know, go from there. In the other incident, there was an incident at Giant Eagle, a pushing incident where a woman fell and she, you know, filed a complaint. There is going to be an arrest made on that. It's an ongoing investigation, so I can't really give a whole lot of information. The chief did talk to the victim today, and he's going to meet with her tomorrow, you know, to have a one-on-one conversation. So that's where we're at with those two incidences.
Thank you.
That's all I have on that.
Mayor, on row 4 says total person arrests for year to date, and then compared to last year, 64 versus 87 last year. I'm not expecting an answer now, but do you know how many of those were unique persons?
No, I don't.
Versus repeat. I don't know if that's something maybe the department could look at. I'd just be curious. I know there's been repeat calls on my side of the neighborhood. I'd just be curious to see how many of these are unique or not.
All right, I'll look into that.
I appreciate it.
Okay, that's it for the police chief report, fire report, Mr. Suchovich.
We had 11 fire calls for the month of October. I got a call from a county EM emergency management service companies. They got a lot of money, and I was talking to Christine today about it, through that ARPA. And I know we got money through ARPA for the borough. This is money that it's extra money. We had to fill out paperwork. It's gonna, they're able to buy us a certain amount of upgraded radio stuff for the fire hall. So that's coming. I'm not exactly sure how it's all gonna transpire. At least we're gonna get something out of it at the far end. Dave, I don't know if you heard anything about it on the police end. This is something supposedly different than that, because they're supposed to go, this ARPA, this group of whatever, they're supposed to go with fire, police, and EMS, and give each company a certain amount of like each fire company's supposed to get in Allegheny County 8 radios. Whether you want 8 portables or 8 mobiles or 3 and 3, or 3 and 5, whatever, you're gonna get 8. Now, I haven't heard anything on the fire or the police side of it, but they had a meeting yesterday and they had another meeting today. And it's gonna be a recorded meeting that, once I get it from Davey Jetta, I'll be able to review it and see if that has anything to do with the police to get some
No,
free radio equipment.
I'll inquire tomorrow with the chief. He hasn't
I
told me
saw him
nothing.
today, I forgot to ask him. So if I hear anything on that, I'll let you or the chief or Christine know where we stand with that. Because like I said, they had the 2 meetings, they were virtual. You could have went out to Moon Township if you really wanted to, but they were virtual too, and they were supposedly record them so we can get a copy of the tape and read it. And the only other thing I have, we're having a police committee meeting Wednesday, tomorrow night, Dave.
Yeah, you know what, I want to talk to you on that, or, after the meeting. I got to talk to Christina on that, and we talked about that. Yeah.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Christine is going to read Mr. Lavelle's report.
So Jamie provided this report before he went into the hospital. The October 2021 call volume, there were 11 advanced life support calls, 4 basic life support calls, 1 fire, 7 refusals, 2 lift assists, 1 canceled, and 1 DOA for a total of 27 calls.
Okay.
The other thing that Jamie mentioned was that he participated in the trunk or treat event at Riverview Children's Center. So I just want to thank him and the ambulance service for their participation in that event. It's much appreciated.
And if I may, the police department also was involved in that too. They gave out candy, and from what I understand, everyone was soaking wet.
It was,
Literally. No, you were down there too.
we were supposed to be there, but we were on a call down at Rite Aid. We ended
Okay.
up missing it. We were on the fire call down at Rite Aid. It was boring like a bear.
Yeah, it was.
Mhm.
And the sheriffs and the
State
county
police
sheriffs, the
was
state
there.
police were out there too. The children's center.
Speaking of trunk or treat, if I can just chime in here, our trunk or treat here in the borough was wonderful as well. Thanks to everybody who came for that. And the weather was great. There was a ton of kids. And I believe Stephanie Garibay organized that for the most part. And kudos to her. That's a great event. I hope we keep having that every year. That was-
And, and I forgot to mention Annette, and Annette decorated the police car.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was really
And
cool.
It
Really
was,
cute.
she decorated, it, everybody liked that, including the adults.
Mm. So, and all the Halloween stuff was really great here. It's spectacular. Okay, wonderful. Enough of that. Solicitors report, Mr. Alexander.
Thank you. I had a few things put on the solicitor's report for this month. The first is the fee resolution. As everybody is aware, we've been working on a comprehensive fee resolution to try to get all of our different fees incorporated into one resolution. We did a lot of work on it at our last code and ordinance meeting. We learned at that meeting that there's a lot more work to do on it than we had anticipated. And I did provide Councilwoman Rejek Showalter and the most recent update of the ordinance. She is going to get it out to everybody. We're going to work on it again at the ordinance meeting on Monday. Hopefully gets a draft back to mayor and council for review at the December meeting. I don't know that it needs to be adopted at that December meeting. I think that is the goal is to have it implemented for the new year and prospectively. So one way or another, we're going to meet that goal. Next item on my list is budget process update. We're at budget time. Christine's new at putting the budget together, so she reached out to me with regard to the requirements of doing that. And I just thought that'd be a good idea to let the public know what happens yearly when you adopt a budget. 30 days prior to enacting the budget, you have to commence work on the new budget. And then at some point you have to submit to mayor and council what's called a proposed budget or preliminary budget. I think that's being done today in the PowerPoint presentation. Once that is done, then the budget goes out on what's called public display. The public has a right to inspect the preliminary or proposed budget for a period of 10 days, after which mayor and council then can make any final tweaks to the budget that they wish to. Council actually, with the mayor's consult, makes those tweaks, and then ultimately that budget is adopted. I believe the goal is to adopt that at December regular meeting, so that you don't have to have a special meeting, because it does have to be adopted by the end of the month. I know that there is a workshop meeting on the last Tuesday of the month. I'm sure that by that time, with the holidays and everything, folks will be wanting to not have that meeting. So hopefully that budget will be prepared and ready. And I know Christine has a wonderful PowerPoint she's going to be going through later to show the work that's been had on the budget. And I will get that preliminary budget advertised for public inspection in that 10 days. That'll get out to the public when it's available, but it'll also be on the borough website and social media for adoption at the December meeting. The next item on my list is 800 2nd Street update. For a lot of people, that's known as the Old Convent property. We demolished the Old Convent years ago and placed a lien on the property. An individual bought that property for a cash deal, never came to the borough for a no lien letter, and was not aware when he bought the property that there was a substantial lien on the property. I know Sylvia's been involved in trying to get that resolved as well. Well, he's hired an attorney, Gary Kallmeyer, to represent him, and Mr. Kallmeyer has filed a motion to strike that lien as excessive. I think the lien is about $27,000 for a large building. It's anything but excessive. But that, I think the presentation date of that motion is on December 10, and he's seeking what's called a rule to show cause why that lien should not be stricken. I appear to show up and contest that, because I don't even know that he gets out of the gate to get an order that would allow him the opportunity to take discovery years after that lien was put on the books. But I feel very confident that the borough will come out successful either on that day or whenever that rule is returnable. The next item on my list is code enforcement update. The one thing I wanted to bring out to the public is that we did have a hearing scheduled in front of Judge DeLuca on a code enforcement issue regarding the feeding of stray and feral cats. That hearing was continued until November 18 at 10 o'clock a.m. I am presently scheduled to be out of town on that day. So I will either have to get somebody from my office to go there in my stead, or that may need to be postponed to a later date, a week or two later, depending on the judge's schedule. I've also been working on with Matt in his capacity as zoning officer on a few other code enforcement issues. The final thing on my report is private property dispute notice update. I wasn't here at the workshop meeting, but Christine had spoken to me about putting together a private property dispute notice. A lot of the issues that come before Borough Council are more akin to private property disputes that the borough really doesn't have an interest or jurisdiction in. And Christine thought that it'd be a good idea to be able to put the residents on notice that, hey, this is a private property dispute, and here is your avenues to get some satisfaction on that dispute, going to the magistrate and things like that. We put telephone numbers on that private property dispute, and she may have even given it out at least once. So that's something that we have to look forward to in the future. That's all I have to report on. Wishing everybody happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Engineers report.
Yes, thank you. At last month's meeting, we approved the submission for the receivable of the grant funds for the First Street reconstruction project. I'm happy to report that I've worked with DCD and the Commonwealth Financing Authority, and due to the total grant project being lower than the grant funds received, they have waived the local share requirement. So that will save the borough $75,000 of local share.
Great.
I'm also working with Christine because usually the grants do not pay for engineering design and inspection. But they said if we provide a letter requesting that, they'll allow us to be reimbursed for that as well. So that's another $27,000 in the borough's pocket. So the contractors got started on the marquee sign for Cribbs Field. He has the post put in. He talking to the sign manufacturer. It should be in next week. He's hoping to have it up and running for the light festival, so the dates and times can be advertised. Hopefully you have the first slideshow on that. And I've also talked with Christine. We have it scheduled. I just have to talk to AJ the Monday after Thanksgiving to winterize the pavilion there. And I already talked to the contractor. He's making himself available to go over that as well. The item 6 on my report that falls under item A of new business. We opened bids for the Wildwood Culvert. The low bidder was Pampina Landscaping and Construction at $39,500. Of that, $23,348 is the grant, and $16,152 would be the local match. And under item A, I am making the recommendation to award to him. He was the one that completed the other repair a few years ago, so he's familiar with the culvert and did a good job on that repair.
Question on that, a comment basically. I have no problem with Mr. Pampina, but we need a start date and an end date. Because we all know that, with the projects that he's done, and he's done a very good job, fantastic job. I don't have no problem. I can't vote on it anyways, but awarding him the contract, but we need an ending date when he's going to be done. And I realize, being in the contracting business that, you have to deal with weather. We always allow a week, for bad weather, but we can't have this going on 2, 3, 4, 5 months.
No, and I understand, and not making excuses for the pavilion. With COVID definitely threw a wrench in everything. With this contract, I have to double check with it. I believe it's 45 days for completion. So there's definitely a time frame built into it that we'll make sure that we follow.
Which number is this, Matt?
6.
It's item 6 on my report, and it would be item A under new business.
And just to say a public meeting, because I talked to a number of residents on their porches about this from First Street, that we are considering communication plan before we go out for any other, future constructions, to make sure that what is required and a little bit beyond is communicated to adjacent streets and property owners and business owners. So when we get closer, we'll just make sure that we are making sure that we over communicate to residents.
Correct. And this project here should not have an overwhelming impact. A little bit on traffic, but there'll be cones and signs in place. It'll mostly impact B&D Motors on Wildwood Avenue there, which I've been in contact with him several times, so he's aware that this is coming up.
Thank you.
Matt, real quick, I saw the bid tab from the COG. And I think the estimate was right around like the 38,000, 39,000.
Yeah, I
And-
think I had the
yeah.
estimate at 38,000,
30.
so it came in just slightly higher.
Yeah, and I saw the other bids were like way over, like, from like 39 up to like 100 some thousand. You know why?
If I'm remembering
why
correctly,
they-
I think we had three good bids, all in the 40,000 range, and then we had two that were, one was like 90 and one was 100.
Yeah.
They were both from companies that I've never worked with or heard of before.
Okay.
Sometimes with these CDBG projects, they hit there's companies out there called plan rooms. So they hit those websites and companies just pick them up. And it's a small fee to pick it up just to cover the printing and the mailing and everything. But sometimes once they pay that $25, $35, they submit a bid regardless. Or I think the one, they were from the Philadelphia area, so they weren't even familiar with the area. So they threw a number at it, hoping they'd get the project. And that's why we see some of those high ones.
Okay. I was just curious. Thanks.
Can we all see that? Or is that something related to COG?
With the bid tab?
Yeah.
No, I can send it out to everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And then just some of the others, we have a couple of the grants that are submitted. We're just waiting to hear back. We have the 2021 Greenways Trail for additional park improvements. And then we have the GEDTFs that we've recently submitted that the Greenways Trails, we should hear sometime here in November, if not probably December. And then the GEDTFs, we should hear probably about April of next year.
These are the ones that we discussed at the last meeting.
Correct, and
Yeah.
those ones were just submitted at the end of October. Yeah, that's all I have.
Is Duquesne Light, are they having, for the street lights, for the LED lights, that program again, do you know of?
So I was talking to Christine before the meeting. I got an email from them that they're discontinuing the program, but it wasn't very clear if it was being stopped at the beginning of 2022 or it was discontinued after 2022. They're replacing it with another program. They now have smart lights where the lights will communicate with each other and then communicate with Duquesne Light when there's an outage. So they are starting a pilot program with that. I believe they said the first year they intend to install about 1,000 of them. So I'm going to stay in contact with Duquesne Light. And if it's the case where they're not doing the LED program like we've been involved with before, I'm going to try to see if they can do some of the test lights in Verona and get those replaced for us.
Thank you.
I have a question as well, Matt. On item number 2. It seems as though 866 and 870 4th Street have been on our list ever since I started council.
Yeah.
And it's been at least 4 years, and maybe it was on the list before I came to council, because I'm just wondering what's happening. It says bids opened in January, but
Correct.
I'm so confused by why it's taking so long for these two properties.
So there was a snafu with the paperwork between the COG and the county and the contractor. I reached out to Mr. Benecki last week for some updates on that. He has not gotten back to me yet. To my knowledge, other than waiting for some paperwork and signatures, that's all it is. It's not an issue of the contractor not getting started, because right away he came down to the borough, got all the proper permits he needed and everything. He just could not start because he wouldn't be paid by the county.
And if I could make a comment on that, but you weren't, but this council wasn't there. Well, Nancy, you was, I think Janet was, I believe Sylvia too.
And Ray.
Was right?
Yeah.
Okay, but regardless, I was against the demo on 4th Street and North Avenue because they are way over the hill. They're not seen from the road. We had other homes that people lived next to them, like on Church Street. The neighbor, I'm constant, when I see her, she's constantly asking me about that, but I guess there's no way of changing that bid. There's 2 homes actually on the 500 block of Church Street that are really bad.
Yeah, so
And they're in a residential area where cars go by, they're highly visible, but
Yeah.
like I said, this 4th Street project, They're over the hill and they're surrounded by trees. You can't even see them.
Yeah, so unfortunately with those ones, they were already awarded, so those can't be changed. We did submit for some for the CD 48, which we'll find out next year if those ones are awarded.
So, but the CD 48, CDBG 48 doesn't include Church Street.
It would be 423 North Avenue, 473 Union Street, 899 4th Street, and 204 West Railroad.
Right, but once upon a time, 558 Church was on a list,
Oh, yeah.
and it was a different, it was in an Act 152 kind of thing or something, or that came after. There was another grant before that.
We had submitted for an Act 152, and we recently found out that it wasn't accepted.
Right, and so then we were gonna put it onto a GDR something or other grant. Some other, do you remember, Trish?
Well, we also found out someone had applied to acquire it through the vacant property recovery program. So we
For
held off-
558 Church?
Yes, so we held off on including it in the subsequent application.
Yeah, there was a couple that we had on the list that someone had either purchased. I don't know if it was through sheriff's sale or not, but it had changed hands. Or the one on Church was actually, the neighbor was trying to acquire it through the vacant property program.
Oh, that's odd, because a brand new demolition thing was just put up on 558 Church. It was recertified as being something that needs to be demolished.
It needs to be demolished.
It's terrible.
Yeah, that's what I
Very
mentioned
sad.
last month. That's falling over the hillside with the
Yeah.
gutters and
Yeah.
the decking. And I had seen the door pushed in a couple times and the pole, this is probably 2 years ago. And I did see it on the list. I didn't know it was removed from a list.
Yeah, I'm very, because the one house right next to it also quite terrible.
And to be fair.
But it was not on the list. Just to be clear, 558 is the one that's been on the list for years
Yes.
again. And we keep thinking something's gonna happen. I'm not saying this is on you or anything. I'm just saying it went in on certain things and then we got turned down and it's just, I think it's a big safety hazard.
And to what you said about the home, next to it being in disrepair too, I will also say the other homes, if you go a home over on either side, they're investing in their property. Those property owners have
Right.
new driveways, they put in, they painted, one's been sold, I know recently, and there's new homeowners there.
Mhm.
So I think to match the efforts of the residents to
And
raise
they
that
are
house and get it
complaining.
back on the list.
I hear it. They are complaining.
No, I don't blame them.
Right.
Yeah,
Can I say something about that?
sure.
One thing that, this is just sort of food for thought for moving forward into next year. One thing that I would really love if we could do is work with Mike of BIU to, and possibly this is bigger than Mike. This is getting the chief involved, getting, Ray, fire chief involved, getting, obviously code enforcement and just, creating some kind of working group that would be able to prioritize demolitions in the community based on health and safety and not just, he or she who speaks the most gets the house next door torn down. And have it be really a formalized process that makes sense and is consistent with community development goals.
It's a good idea.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good report for us, $100,000.
Okay. Is that it, Matt?
The only other thing I wanted to mention that wasn't on my report, I've been corresponding with Duquesne Light since July for the corner of Allegheny River Boulevard and South Avenue, where they tried to put a pole in the middle of the ramp and then put it right in front of the walk signal. I have not been successful in getting any results out of that. So I followed up with them again today, pretty much just making them aware that we were going to be discussing it, that we do have an ordinance that if they don't reply to us, we will move forward with having it repaired and then billing them for it. And I've talked to Craig, and if it falls under that ordinance, they fall under the category of owner and they're fully responsible for making those repairs. And I have the email records that we've asked them for timeframes. I understand right away they might have been waiting to group it together with a couple repairs to make it more cost effective. But it's been since July that I've been trying to get a time frame, and I haven't even got an email back, so.
Oh, which reminds me, we've never heard back from Beaver Jack either, right?
Correct. No response there. And then I had emailed the company that was gonna do the tree assessments, and they have not responded either.
With snowfall around the corner, how quickly could we have the project on the sidewalk corrected and then invoice them for payment? That's something we have to put out for bid. Is that something we could do internally, do you think?
The sidewalk repair would not be too expensive. I could talk to Public Works and see if that's something that they would undertake. I think, and maybe Craig can chime in, I think maybe for billing purposes, it might be better off to actually have a contractor's invoice for it. That way we could just basically turn that over rather than trying to come up with time and material.
Yes. I think that's a good idea. Just thinking that snow and ice is around the corner, and if it comes to it, you have 2 feet of snowfall and you can't see a hole, you fall in a hole, like, those things we should avoid, which you've tried since July, but I'm wondering if we need to, how soon we could do it.
Yeah, I was planning on trying to meet with a contractor next week for the inlet on ARB there to get a better price on that. I can talk to them about the ramp repair as well, and that way I can at least respond to Decaying Light and just say, this is what the price is gonna be if you don't respond to us.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Matt. Next is Mr. Warren.
Thank you. Can't follow $100,000 worth of refunds, but I'll start. So I have one item on here, which is the sale of the Peterbilt. And during public comment this evening, we heard from one of our crew members to kind of give testimonial and also raise a question about whether the dollars that were with the sale of it being put back into the garage. And my sentiment is yes, I believe we should do that. We talked with our committee probably 2 months ago, Ray and Dave, about the idea of the advantages, like Ray said, about, you don't have to have a license to use it. The sale price, it's the seller's market. And for the recommendations that were shown up on the screen, we've also discussed. I'd like to make the recommendation, which was recommended to us, that we do sell the Peterbilt and try to get the best value for it now. We begin that process with the municipal bid. I'm hoping later this week or next week. And then with the sale of that, look at the recommendations for a skid loader, look at the attachments, and then that way our full crew can use it. And for instances of raised baskets or other things that happen throughout the community, for anything where we might have something out of reach, or we could use something that's ours versus renting it, which would be long-time savings. My suggestion is that we explore those. So for step one, I'd like to make a recommendation that we make a motion that we put the Peterbilt up for sale, municipal bid, and begin the process for sale, and then subsequently look for the purchase of.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Sechovich. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. When we sold the police car, and Christine, you can jump in on that. We had to come up with a starting price to start the bid with municipal bid. So the board needs to come up with a dollar sign. Even if it's X amount of dollars, doesn't mean it's going to sell for that. That's going to, the bid is going to more likely go higher. But municipal bid actually wants you to, give them a price at where to start the bid off. We started at 4,000 and we ended up getting 9 for the car.
I think we started even lower than that.
It might have been, yeah.
Municipal bid recommends that you start the bidding at 10 to 20% of the value of the vehicle. And so that would be pretty low, but we also have the possibility of including a reserve price. So if we think we should get, $60,000 or $70,000 for it, and the highest bid is 20, we are not obligated to sell the vehicle. And we would just, maintain ownership. So we would also, and I've spoken to AJ a little bit about this. So, and he's digging in and finding out what would be a good reserve price given the vehicle, because that's certainly not something I know. I don't generally buy large machinery. So I'm working with him on that and get the specs and pictures and those sorts of things so we can advertise it and hopefully get top dollar.
Do we use Blue Book Value on those kinds of things, or no, because we're a borough?
I don't,
Market value.
it doesn't have the book value
Yeah, I don't-
for, like like consumer vehicles, so to speak. Like even the police vehicle, because it's a police vehicle and not like the regular model, it's not up there.
Oh, okay, I just
Yeah.
wondered, because it gives you a baseline.
Yeah.
Well, it's a buyer's market now. You can't buy cars or vehicles, period.
So we need a start price, which means we have to have some kind of idea of how much it's worth due to 10%. And also what our reserve price, not sure we can come up with that answer right now. Should we proceed with the motion and add,
Let AJ start working on it.
There's
Or
been some
should-
homework done as well as Christine has gathered and provided to us, some numbers on that, recommendations for, step 2 and 3 for purchase, but is that something AJ you think could get to us by the end of the week if you work with him?
He's off tomorrow. I'm off Thursday. I'll text
Or
him
next
tomorrow
week.
anyway, and see if that's something he can assist with.
Okay.
I think, and obviously I'm not a voting member of people sitting up here, but my recommendation would be that we trust AJ to know what the value of these vehicles are and to like basically let him set that starting price and set the reserve price and move forward.
I agree.
I agree with that.
I know we had a second, we're in discussion right now, but I don't know if this needs to be formally voted on, Solicitor, if I would just say that I would like the monies to remain within the crew equipment that we'd be replacing with and getting more equipment for. Do I need to add that or just make that comment, Solicitor?
I think you're fine with that comment.
Okay, thank you.
So to add to that, Joe, I mean, I agree with trying to use the proceeds towards a new skid steer. The only thing I'll mention is just from a budget perspective, we budgeted for selling the Peterbilt. And I forget how much we budgeted. I want to say it was 40, and I think we went low on that back in April, just to not overshoot. But we didn't budget for the skid steer, so we would just need to see how much money we get in and how much this. And I know you and AJ have been working on estimates. To see how much we get and how, like if we budgeted 40,000 and we only get 40,000 for the Peterbilt, and we didn't budget anything for the skid steer, and that costs 40,000, then we're eating 40,000 of expenditures that we're not budgeted for in
Yes.
2021.
Correct. So I don't want to do anything else other than spend what we would have received from it. So if we have, say, 8 accessories or 5 accessories that were recommended, we're not going to buy them all regardless. It's what we get from the sale that we'll be able to then spend with. We saying the same thing?
Yeah, well, so like when we budgeted, when we do the overall budget, that line item for selling of the Peterbilt is not tied to a specific, that revenue is not tied to a specific expenditure in the budget. So that is just general fund money. It's like if you anticipate selling your car for $20,000 in your bank account, but you don't budget for buying a new car at $20,000, then you might have go and spend that $20,000 on something else, or you might have other expenditures. So I think we'd have to wait and see what amount we get for the Peterbilt, and if it's, where it falls in relation to the budgeted amount for the Peterbilt, which again, I'm saying 40,000. I'd have to double check what it was, but and then let's say we budget that and we get 70 and a skid steer costs 30, then we have a windfall of $30,000, and we can very easily spend that without affecting the rest of the budget. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to ask a question then. So the documentation that I'm looking at from the 2021 budget, that was like when the budget was reopened and then it's not showing anything budgeted for proceeds of fixed asset dispositions. So like the budgeted sale of the Peterbilt didn't populate in what was handed over to me. So from where, my perspective, selling the Peterbilt is not something that was factored in for 2021. I'm not saying it wasn't, I'm just saying that in the documentation that was handed to me, that's not in there. So I think we just need to be really clear about, and the estimates I have for year end 2021 do not factor in selling that equipment. I mean, it would be general fund, which is, this thing that I'm looking at,
Yeah,
and it's not under, and it should be under, 391,000 proceeds fixed asset dispositions.
Yeah.
And, it's not appearing there. So, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, I'm just saying that it's not
Yeah.
here, so we need to
we need to
get
double
clear
check.
on that, and,
I think we could still move to sell it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it was budgeted or not, I think we're all in agreement to sell it.
Yeah.
And then we may have to do some research about what was budgeted, if anything. It might have been this 39,000 under miscellaneous revenue other. If I had to guess, but we can look at that further. We can wait and see what the bids come in at and what we sell it for, and then make a final determination about the skid steer. I mean, I want to be clear, I'm all in favor of getting them the skid steer. I just want to make sure we have the money for it. And if we don't sell the Peterbilt for as much as we expect, or the skid steer costs more, then, we might have to reevaluate. So I think we can do the research and wait and see what the numbers come in at, and then make a final determination, or like another motion to actually purchase a skid steer at a later date.
can I add one more thing just to beat a dead horse? Just a weird phrase. So I do see it up here under miscellaneous revenue, other $39,000. When I went in QuickBooks to see like what's actually been happening, the only thing that's in that bucket was the sale of the Ford Interceptor. So, when
Interceptor?
the police car from last month.
Oh,
So that's the only thing that's in there. So I made an estimate for the year end that our only revenue would be the sale of the police car and not the sale of the Peterbilt. So just to put that out there that that's how the year end estimates have been prepared. Was still not assuming that the Peterbilt was sold. It was only only the car.
I'm seeing we adjusted expected revenue from sale of Peterbilt dump truck by 25,000. The original amount was.
well, in regards to this motion, clearly it sounds like everyone's good with selling the Peterbilt, but do we need to have the start price and the reserve price for the motion? Or can we just say, sell it and trust Christine and DPW to determine those two numbers?
Yeah, I say allow them to do their job and work together
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I heard everybody being a consensus on.
Yeah, all right, so, I'd like to, unless there's any other major comments or questions, call the question and ask for, all those in favor, please say aye. And any opposed? Okay, that motion passed. We'll work out the details later. All right, is that it for you?
I just want to extend the congratulations to those who won and let those who did win know that voices have been heard and all of Verona will be represented. And I look forward to serving the community for the next 2 years and working with everyone here and everyone who's going to be joining us.
Okay. Next up is Mr. Matlin.
All right, thank you. The first item I have is an update on the VOP Trail project. I know it's been a little while. Back in early September, well, actually going back before that, we had applied through the borough, the VOP committee, which consists of representatives from Verona, which are myself and Mike Forbeck, representatives from Oakmont, Penn Hills, and Plum, the 4 municipalities consisting of that are affected by the trail project. We had applied for an active Allegheny grant to do the design for the first phase of the trail, which was identified in the feasibility study. And so, you know, we had motioned to apply for that. Mike Forbeck did a lot of the work to get that going. He's still on the committee. We put out a request for proposals for the design firms to respond to for you know, proposals on doing that design work. That was sent out in early September. And that first phase is basically the section of trail segment from Verona Riverfront near Still City Rowing, following mostly on-road or shared road path to Oakmont, down Plum Street near the Dark Hollow Bridge. Oakmont has a separate project to put in a bridge across Plum Creek to get basically from that point where this first segment ends to into Creekside Park for that area. So the idea is to get that much of the trail segment designed and closer to being ready to build, even though there's not really much to build. It's mostly going to be on street, but there is a significant PennDOT coordination for Allegheny River Boulevard. So anyway, so the request for proposals for that was issued in early September. They were due on October 15th. We received 4 good proposals for different firms. They're all right around $30,000. That was the amount. 29 or 30 was the amount of the grant. So the trail committee met a couple times in the last few weeks, the VOP committee, and we've tentatively selected a firm out of those 4, our proposal that we feel really good about. So I didn't have enough time from when we made the decision late last week until now to get everyone the scope of work and the documents to review, but I will be getting that together and getting it to council hopefully in the next week or so. And then I know the workshop meeting typically wouldn't be for agenda items, but it is going to be somewhat timely in order to get the contract work, because we'll have a contract and then there's no match to this grant. But Verona will have a contract with the winning, the selected firm. And then there will also be a contract with the Allegheny County Department of Economic Development, because they're administering the grant. So we'll pay out for the consultant fees up to the total amount of $30,000, and then the county will reimburse us once we have that pay estimate together. So I just wanted to give an update on that and just let everyone know that you'll see, I'll send out the proposal and the scope of work, and we'll probably have to I'll get with Craig and figure out what we need to get together as far as a resolution to award it. So if anyone has questions on that.
Dave, I know you're going to send the scope, but just in brief, what will the expected outcome be after the consultant is done? So you said it's not a lot of trail work per se being on roads, but like what will it look like?
Yeah, so and I'll send the RFP around as well, because I don't know if, I can't remember if Mike had sent that out to anyone, but yeah, basically it's to kind of lay out the preliminary design for on-road markings, and to do as much as they can a traffic study on ARB between Center and Plum Street, to look at the possibility of reducing a lane for traffic calming measures, and to be able to put in either a bi-directional or segmented one-way cycle track or bike lane. So that was what, and the feasibility study, if anyone wants me to send it out again, it's linked on the website. It's been shared before. I can send out the feasibility study because it shows the map of what was, what the results were from that study. But the idea would be to have the engineer or the consultant do the work to present to PennDOT, because they basically have to make a case to PennDOT that this is warranted, that that a lane reduction isn't going to cause any disruptions in traffic, and that it's going to be useful in calming, speeds. So they'll look at the existing vehicle speeds and that sort of thing, and they will get not quite bid ready or construction ready plans, but will be closer to that. So then there's a highway occupancy permit that PennDOT requires after that stage if they approve it. So it's really just doing the legwork to show PennDOT that this is feasible, or this is legit, and then the next phase would be to seek money for the remaining portion to get that then built. And the actual construction, if it's approved, should not really be that costly, because it's largely going to be markings and things like that, unless something comes up unforeseen. So that's where we're at. I hope that answers the question. So, anyone else? Okay. So the next item is the 2022 budget update, which I will turn over to Christine for a brief presentation. You should. I don't know if it's oh.
Okay. So for those of you sitting up on the dais, there is a printout of this in case you can't read the things that are up on the screen. This is an introduction to the 2022 annual budget. It's meant to be fairly high level. We're not going line by line. It's just to give a high level overview. Wanted to start with the proposed timeline. So tonight we introduced the draft budget. By the end of the week, we advertise a special budget meeting if it's decided that we would like to hold a special budget meeting. Should we decide that's what we want, then there will be one on November 23rd. On November 30th is the council workshop meeting where I would expect we would dig into this quite deeply. Then on December 1st, advertise for the draft 2022 budget for adoption. And that would begin the 10-day public display period. We actually have more than 10 days because we would only adopt on the 14th at the regular business meeting in December. Just to go over what we'll do tonight. First, we'll start with proposed expenditures, move into estimated revenues, and then compare those proposed expenditures and revenues. And then a brief section that's about the financial position of the borough estimated for the end of this year and 2022. Although with Matt's news that we're now
not having to dole out nearly $100,000, my numbers are now wrong. So thank you. And then just a couple of notes about revenue sources. I mean, this is a good problem for it to be wrong. It's wrong in the correct direction, so it's all good. So just want to set the stage a bit. This really is a high level discussion, and it's meant to just be a springboard to start the conversation. It's not meant to get super in the weeds tonight. And just a statement that budgets are really an expression of a community's priorities and the municipality's policies. So I'm hoping that we can view view the budget really as a policy document. Okay, so this is microscopic, and I know you can't really read it, especially when it's up there on the screen. But what I've done is taken all of the general buckets of expenditures and collapsed them. So under administration, which is the top row, there are things like my salary, or hiring an administrative assistant, or the photocopier and all that stuff. We're not talking about those items tonight. And then so we see that there are changes from 2021 to 2022, and then the percent change from 2021 to 2022. And these are based off the year-end estimates. And so if you can see, or if you look on your papers and you see the some of these percent changes, you'll notice that some of them are quite large, like administration is up nearly 70% over last year, but that's just because the administrative structure has changed. And then another one, planning and zoning, you'll see it's up, 1,202%, but that's because 2021 year-end estimate is spending not even $1,700 on planning and zoning, but we're, or sorry, I'm wrong, I can't even read it. Yeah, planning and zoning. And so that's just because we're going to be doing more next year. We're going to have, Mike working with us more. We're just going to be doing more. So we needed to allocate more money, and we started at a relatively low number. The other thing I just want to note about these is that we can't really, when you look at the historical data going back all the way to 2017, it's not really a fair comparison, because if you look at like DPW, for example, back in, here it's listed as public works, it's 430-000. In 2017, the budget was 515,000, then it went up to almost 900,000. But then when you look at 2022, what's proposed is like $306,000. But that's a lot misleading, because the way things were classified prior to this year, all of like street paving got classified as public works. And if there was, a sewer project, that got classified as public works, but that's not really the public works budget, because it's, doing some kind of capital improvement. So things have been changed in this budget, where there's now a capital expenditures line, and that's toward the bottom, 485-000 capital expenditures. And there you'll see there's the $400,000 that used to live under the public works line item. So this is just a high level overview. We're looking at year-end estimates for 2021 of $1,559,718, expenditures in the general fund and general fund only. And the proposed expenditures based on, operating costs plus any capital projects for which we know we've been awarded grants, and therefore we have a local match. Only those capital projects have been included. We did not put the entire borough's wish list into this. These are just things that we know we need to have money for. And so the 2022 proposed expenditures are just over $2 million at $2,071,317, or a change from 2021 to 2022 of just over $500,000, or about 33%. And so to look at a visual of what that looks like by major line item, and I did collapse some of these. So like the big maroonish color that's goes from like 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Under admin finance, that has tax collection as well as data processing, which is basically like paying for Gmail and the website. That's all lumped together because those are very similar kinds of functions. So, you know, admin and those things of that ilk are about 14% of the pie. The police department comprises 30.6% of the pie. Another large slice is public works at just under 15%. And capital projects are up there at 20% currently with, you know, other things, you know, rounding out the proposed expenditures. I did also collapse the fire department and debt service on the fire truck into one sliver, since our only debt service right now goes to the fire trucks. Let's put those together. So this is just a way to visualize where the proposed expenditures are going by broad bucket. And then when we look to the revenue side, revenues do come from a variety of sources, including property taxes, the earned income tax, local fines and fees, and rarely federal assistance. We're actually in a strange time right now in that we do have federal assistance with these ARPA funds. That's money that was made available through the American Rescue Plan Act. So in 2021, Dave, actually, you filled out the form to get us that money direct. So thank you for that. And so that yielded $126,179 in federal funds. And then we'll receive the same amount in 2022. Now, the thing about federal funds is that they're highly restrictive. You can only use them for the things that the feds tell you you can use them for. And I'm working on calculations with the assistance of Susan, and I've enlisted Peter Venturi as well to determine, so these ARPA funds, you can use some of the money to basically plug holes in your general fund if you can show that your revenues declined as a result of the pandemic. If you cannot show that your revenues declined because of the pandemic, then you cannot use the money to plug the hole in the general fund. Then you must do eligible projects. And I've talked to a couple of people about this. It's not super clear based on what we've looked at so far, whether when they say sewer projects, storm projects, or stormwater projects, and how do they phrase it, Matt? They say sewer, water, and broadband for narrowing the digital divide, which is less of an issue here because we're not rural. But what's not clear is whether when they say sewer, they mean sanitary and stormwater, or what precisely that is. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. And for our next meeting, I'll have that calculation complete, and we'll know really where we stand on the ability to use that money to, you know, plug the hole in the general fund. So here's a similar kind of table that's illegible from far away on estimated revenues, again, broken down by broad category. And so, you know, I'm not going to belabor this whole thing and just kind of cut to the chase because we do have the pie chart coming up then. In 2022, it's estimated that we will have revenues in the for the general fund, so not counting sewer fees or liquid fuels, of $1,839,914, which is actually a little bit less than the estimated amount for 2021. It's a decline of 3%. And so here's a pie chart looking at what those proposed revenues or estimated revenues, where the sources are. So you see that the lion's share is that big green chunk that's the real estate tax, and those are 43% of the revenues. There's another pretty big slice in the light green, the earned income tax and the local service tax, and then other encompasses like everything that's not these big buckets. And they're, you know, like little things like sale of assets, not counting the Peterbilt, because I didn't put that in there yet, and so on and so forth. So you'll also see there's a state shared revenue that's sort of that light purple color. Those are things that are like
community development block grant funds or any of the other grants that Matt has been working so hard to get us. Those go into that bucket. And then there's the dark purple one, and those are the ARPA funds. So then here's where the rubber hits the road, because now we have a bar chart showing that the colors stay the same from the pie chart to these, not that I expect you to remember them. And we have estimated revenues there on the left and proposed expenditures on the right. And so you can see that the expenditure bar is taller than the revenue bar. So we have some work to do to even out the height of those bars, either by increasing revenues and making it taller or shrinking the expenditure bar. And so this next slide gives what I thought would have been the financial position of the borough, but it's now changed. And so year-end estimate for the fund balance at the end of 2020 per Peter Venturi's audit was in the red, $221,578. And then through reworking the budget earlier this year, raising revenues of $1,901,393 and decreasing expenditures to $1,559,718. That would leave a fund balance in the general fund estimated for the end of this year of just over $120,000. And so that's great. It's in the black. It's not the red anymore. I do want to point out though that this positive $120,000 includes $126,000 of highly restrictive federal funds. And so, you know, this is sort of, well, now that there's an extra $100,000 laying around, like it's going to be good. But if we can't use the ARPA funds to plug the holes in the general fund, then you know, we're not in as strong of a financial position at the end of this year. And again, we'll know that soon. So then carrying that forward, if the estimated fund balance really is this $120,000 in the black, and revenues are just over 1.8 million next year, and our expenditures are almost 2.1 million next year, then that puts us back in the red of just over $100,000. And again, this is mitigated by these ARPA funds equal to $126,000. So, you know, this is sort of best case scenario if we did exactly as proposed. And so there is this pattern of expenditures exceeding the revenues. And so it's recommended that the borough address the structural deficit. So I just want to talk about real estate taxes for 1 minute, just because make sure everybody's clear about what 1 mil is actually equivalent to. So 1 mil is the same as $1 paid in taxes for every $1,000 of assessed value of a home. So Verona's millage rate right now, oh, there's a typo there. I read this 100 times and yet there it is 7.8 mils. And so that means for every $1,000 in assessed property value, the homeowner pays $7.80. The assessed value is the valuation that's assigned by the Allegheny County Real Estate Department, and that is frequently different than the market rate. And then I have this highlighted because I'm not able to find for sure. There are a couple of differing pieces of data, but based on what I was able to find, it seems that the millage rate has been 7.8 since 2016. So it's quite a while, you know, relative, like things have gone up in price, things just cost more, there's inflation, et cetera. So I'm happy to revise that statement if somebody can provide better data to me. And so how much is a 1 mil tax increase for a typical homeowner here in Verona? According to the Allegheny County website, the median assessed value is $50,400. And so for those of you that don't remember your high school statistics class,
A median means that it's the middle home, the middle in terms of value, assessed value. So half of the homes in Verona are assessed under 50,400 and half of them are assessed more. It's not the average. It's the one right in the middle. And so a 1 mil increase is equivalent to $50.40 for that middle home on an annual basis, which means half of residents would pay less than $50.40 per year. And the other half of the owners would pay more than $50.40 per year. It works out to like $4.22 per month. And I don't want to minimize that. I mean, for some households, $4.22 is the same as a really good cup of coffee or a really good beer, if that's your thing. But for other households, that really is a loaf of bread or a box of cereal, or, you know, or having money to put gas in the car one last time before you get your paycheck to, you know, get to work. So I really don't want to minimize that, the amount, but I do want to put it in perspective. So that, you know, we talk about 1 mil, we're not talking hundreds of dollars. We're not talking like taxes doubling, things like that. It's that this is 1 mil is $50.40 on the middle house in the borough. And so a 1 mil tax increase, if we had a 100% tax collection rate, which we don't, based on preliminary estimates, it's somewhere between like 85 and 90%. I need to work with Keystone to get better data. A 1 mil increase at 100% collection raises about $110,000 a year. And then the earned income tax, that's the other big bucket of money in terms of revenues. The earned income tax is 1% of earned income that's shared equally between the school district and the borough. So the borough receives 0.5% of all residents' wages. And we cannot increase this rate. It's capped by the Pennsylvania Borough Code. So we're maxed out there. There's nowhere to go. There's no additional revenue capacity in the earned income tax. So I just want to put this up again, that proposed timeline, so that we come back to that idea of the special budget meeting. We will need to make a decision about whether that's something we want to pursue, so that we have adequate time to figure out, you know, how we're going to level out the heights of those bar charts and get a balanced budget. I'm happy to also take questions. I know I just threw a lot at all of you, and you know, it can be a little overwhelming, a lot of numbers there and math words, and that can be a little daunting, but I'm happy to help clarify.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I know in the past, there's been some discussion about having to pay back to the sewer fund and how much we would pay back, and also do we want to have a minimum fund balance at the end of the year and how much? And I just wanted to get clarity from you if what you presented to us includes any of that.
So it does not include the minimum fund balance, because if I put it in as an expenditure, it sort of like messes up other things. So that just has to be a decision that we would make, or you would make, and I would implement that. We'd have to fiddle with the expenditures and, you know, potentially revenue increases to get a minimum fund balance that was desired. But the budget that I proposed did put in $100,000 in the sewer fund repayment. And I chose $100,000 because it was, you know, something that was recommended in one of the spring reports that Susan provided. So I went with it. And again, that's open to discussion, but that was just a starting point. It's just to, you know, it's a springboard for conversation. And that's, so 100,000 is in there.
Is it, would you be able to easily point out on this presentation where it is?
Sure. So if you look at the one that's expenditures for the general fund only, which I pulled it back up here, there's the very bottom line above the pink
I don't have a good coding for it, so it's just
Oh,
XXX.
gotcha.
Transfer to sewer fund.
Mhm.
So there's $100,000 there that that's allocated. And again, up for discussion, just, it's a starting point. It's something that was talked about.
Sure.
And
So Christine, you're saying hypothetically, we could pause the repayment of $100,000 next year to the sewer fund and pause the tax increase.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear part of those words.
Mass muffled. So theoretically, we could plug this hole instead of doing a tax freeze in 2022 with pausing the repayment to the sewer fund for 2022.
It could plug part of the hole. The hole is bigger than 100,000, particularly if we cannot use all of the ARPA funds to plug the general fund hole. And honestly, I'm not optimistic that we will be able to do that, because just in looking at revenues from 2019 to 2020, they went up by like 16% And, the prevailing thought was revenues went down, but they didn't. And so I just need to plow through the calculation, verify a couple of things with Peter and Cherry. So I'm afraid that the hole is bigger than we want it to be for general operating costs. But you could certainly reduce that. I mean, my own personal recommendation is not to kick that can down the road, because at some point it's going to come due. And, and we're already talking about, if we get this grant, but we can't pay it in 2022 because of just the timing, and it kicks to 2023. Now we're already talking about having projects committed for 2023. And so, like, basically, where does it stop? Where do we just say, we're going to fix this problem, we're going to deal with it, and, get ourselves solidly in the black on firm financial standing using, like, best practices. That's my 2 cents. I don't vote, but that's, where I would go. Particularly because I know that, like, Verona really wants to level up. There are like so many great things happening here, like really involved community that, wants to make this place better and better and better. And so, that leveling up really requires a firm financial standing. Otherwise it's just, trying to get by.
I don't disagree. It's just many of the residents I've talked to, surprised they're very against a tax increase, especially coming out of COVID. So I'm sure with your help, we will exhaust all options. And to your question, I'm in favor of an extra budget meeting on the 23rd to work through these things.
One other question, Christine, I have. Do you have a sense of why you think our estimated revenue for 22 would be $100,000 or so less than this year?
Part of it was, I'd have to look at the,
It doesn't have to be precise. I'm just
yeah,
curious.
part of it's, there were significantly, and compared to $100,000, like about 20% of that, I'd say, maybe it's 15% of that comes from, the real estate market was booming this year. And so there were a lot of transfer taxes that we got this year that historically just weren't there. And, it seems like the market's cooling compared to what it was at the start of this spring. And so those estimates are a little bit lower. And I'd have to pull up the very detailed budget to pull out all the other things, but it's, just sort of reading the writing on the wall with some of these things.
Yeah, I was just wanting to get your sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions?
Great presentation.
Oh, yes.
I'm glad we invested in your service to have you on board.
Me
This
too.
is something I appreciate. And as far as the springboard goes for conversation, I do look forward to discussing these. As much as no one wants to talk about raising taxes, everyone wants to have everything and do all these, like, this is going to have to be a very candid conversation that we as a community go over these things and understand. Are we bringing more income? Are we spending less? All these things that we want to do, that every community wants to do. Is it worth the sacrifice of a beer or a cup of coffee a month per household? Something where we can look to where we're spending it and identify, we can lessen this. But as far as the springboard goes, I appreciate all this preparation.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is
thank you. Thank you very much,
an
Christine.
amazing presentation, Christine.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think you mentioned it, and it's on the screen right now. I just want to comment and make sure everyone's clear that this is, what you've been talking about tonight is just the general fund.
Correct.
There are other funds we are going to need to look at. So, you know, we have the general fund, we have the sewer fund, sanitary sewer fund, the liquid fuels fund, the fire truck fund. Am I missing one? I mean, there's the pension funds. So we're primarily, you know, the general fund's the biggest and most visible fund of the bunch, but the final budget, or the final draft, the final proposed budget will include all of them. Correct.
Correct.
So,
Yes, can I add to that?
yeah.
So sounds like there's interest in doing a special meeting just on the voices that have spoken.
Yes.
I don't see
Does
any head nods on
anybody-
this side. I see some head nods now. Not to put you on the spot. So,
Sorry.
you know, when that meeting would happen, then there would be a full budget for consideration. The sewer fund is just about finished, but then of course, as it was just about finished, Alpha Sam announced their rate increases. So now there's some more calculating to do. And liquid fuels and like the other ones are pretty minimal, just because limited revenues, limited expenditures. So the full budget would be out there for consideration for the special meeting, and then certainly for the public display period. Thank you for like really highlighting.
Yeah,
This is
thanks for explaining
just
that.
general fund.
Yep.
And the special meeting on the 23rd, maybe you just said this, is totally open to anyone who wants to come and observe and
Yes.
be there.
Yes, it's absolutely open to the public. Personally, I would love if we could maybe not be up here in this arrangement for it and more like a conversation, because this really is going to be a conversation, you know, among the team to figure out, you know, how to level out the bars in that bar chart. So, you know, I'll put my thinking cap on about how we can possibly get down there, but, and that's just my preference. I mean, you can all like.
Can we
totally
meet at another
disagree.
public space so that we can accommodate for spacing and have, you know, literally around a table somewhere, at another community space?
Is there another, I'm totally open to that. I mean. I think-
Fire hall or church? I don't know if there's somewhere else that would accommodate, you know, with a projector or not. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, so I'll do a little research into, you know, where might we be able to have,
The only problem is we wouldn't be able to do this.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the hybrid
wouldn't-
setup, I
yeah,
think, at
There would be no Zoom
at the
option.
fire hall
Mhm.
or,
But I think that we could move the benches around
Accommodate
and
this
and
room.
make something happen. Yeah.
Tables.
yeah, just so that it really does get everybody looking each other in the eye and having, like, what's gonna really be a heart to heart, like, we need to balance this.
Mhm.
I appreciate the last page too, because you do have the comparison table for neighboring communities on the riverfront. Some of the who, you know, just at a glance might pay less or pay more, but relative to home value and to amenities and why people move there or shop there or
Population.
yeah, a lot of these things are helpful. And I know that the county website's also a great resource to see year-over-year trends, historical millage rates, all these things will be great for conversation. So I appreciate this.
Okay. Any other questions? Here, people?
So Greg, I'll just work with you on getting a properly written ad
Yes.
for publication in the newspaper at the end of the week.
Yep.
And we'll plan on, you know, that meeting on the 23rd. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for all your hard work. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot into that.
the only other thing I had a note on about the capital plan for 2022, and Christine touched on it a little bit. She in concert with the finance committee, we've been continuing to evaluate and inventory capital projects, things that have been requested. based on public feedback, council feedback, DPW requests, recommendations. And I know that there's been some discussions just like with Matt's update about some of the projects, when they're gonna be paid or how much it's gonna cost us for matches and things like that. So that's gonna feed into that. And I think we'll hope to have a detailed review of the capital projects with the 2022 budget. I know you mentioned basically right now, we're just plugging in kind of the ones that have been committed. So like we have a rolling list, and I mentioned this before, that the committee, finance committee, we did Ray and Joey, myself, and Christine had a nice chat several weeks ago about trying to prioritize that list of capital projects. And so we're working on getting that into a format that can be presented along with the budget. But there's a whole lot of stuff on the wish list, that just aren't going to be able to be done in the next year, even the next 2 years. So we really have to take a hard look at what the priorities are, what's really necessary and most efficient use of that dollar. So I just wanted to let everyone know where we stood with that. And just to echo what everyone else has said thus far, I wanted to just send a congratulations to everyone who won in the elections last week. And a thank you to Dr. Carpenter for her service on council and as president. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Madeline. Thank you for your comments. Okay, next up is Ms. Regia Showalter.
Thank you, Madam President. I just had 2 brief updates for this evening. The first is mostly informational, as our solicitor, Craig Alexander, already mentioned. Our next ordinance committee meeting will be on this upcoming Monday at 4:30, and he's already briefed you on the status of the 3 resolution updates. So thank you for that. The next item is just a brief update on the Jolly Jamboree, which is fast approaching. Next Saturday, week from Saturday, November 20th. The mayor already spoke to a few things, but I promised at last meeting that I would have my list of asks more together for discussion with all of you. The first ask I have, and I'm so glad that we have representatives from DPW here tonight. We have a banner that we would like to be hung on the pavilion at Railroad Park at earliest convenience, that just is similar to the same as the ones in the borough about the event. We'd also like to ask that whenever the holiday tree, I don't know if we're supposed to call it Christmas tree, but the holiday tree is set up, instead of in the center of the pavilion, it could be off to one side or the other to allow for more space and social distancing as we have the performances at the time capsule that evening. That would be great. We'd also like to request that the chamber chairs be brought out to the pavilion, along with a couple tables for the Garden Club's holiday plant sale as well. If we have a propane tank or 2, we would love to use them. We'll be borrowing a heater or 2 for the event as well. And the last ask I have, which is open for discussion, but we really wanted to support a locally owned food truck, Progression Bistro, during the event. Unfortunately, they're having an issue coordinating with their driver for the 20th, so they could only participate if we allow them to leave their truck where it will be serving in the borough parking lot from Friday the 19th through Wednesday the 24th. So I said I would bring that to council for discussion, if that's something we would be comfortable allowing them to park their truck there for that period of time or not.
So where exactly are you saying it would be?
Right here, either on one end or the other.
Like down by like where Shrams usually parks?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's like at that end out of the way.
Yes.
I think that should be okay. Does anybody have any major objections to that? So the truck would be there from Friday the 19th until Wednesday the 24th.
Correct.
It sounds like nobody has any objections, so.
Okay, that's a big relief. Thank you so much. Christine, I'll formalize that in an email for you to
Remind reader.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's all I have. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you at the event.
Thanks, Trish. Ms. Alba.
Thank you. Yes, Trish has on the Jolly Jamboree bandwagon there. I know there's a lot of activities, like the Garden Club will be celebrating or selling their holiday plants and that starting around 11 o'clock that morning. So then continuation on with tree decorating and ornament decorating with the children, with them from Verona's elementary school. Also, right now too, just informational, the Boy Scouts are doing their food drive. There is a box out in the vestibule and it will serve the local residents with the Rosedale Food Pantry. So if anybody has canned goods, looking for good foods like for the Thanksgiving holiday too, would be really grateful. Also, the next Park and Rec board meeting will be on December 7th, 6:30 via Zoom meeting. That's all I have. Thank you. Something else? I'm sorry?
The holiday movie.
The holiday movie? What is that?
It's after the Jolly Jamboree.
Oh, after
Yeah.
that evening? Okay. Yes, so we're having a holiday movie. Drive-in movie that evening?
Short holiday movie.
Who is hosting Jolly Jamboree? Because I know it's been reported by 3 people tonight, and I'm not sure who all, like, it's on your agenda item, who's hosting it.
So it's a collaboration between council members, primarily chambers driving it, and the Verona community group is also heavily involved. We have a small committee. Kim as well has been helping out a great deal, both the Garden Club and marketing.
And, okay, any other questions? And you
Thank
said
you.
that the next Parks and Rec meeting is December 7th at 6:30
Zoom.
on Zoom.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you.
Speaking of Christmas, I also, since we were talking about the Boy Scouts food drive, just want to mention also that LVAF is having a toy drive and there's a box out front for that as well. Okay, moving on to Ms. Provenza.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. We'll start off with newsletter. The due date is rapidly approaching, and we absolutely are going to need all the ads and all the articles by Wednesday, December the 1st. And if you can possibly get them in sooner, we would more than sincerely appreciate it, because Rogers and Duterte, they actually usually take a week off before Christmas. So we'd like to get the newsletter printed and out the door. So please get your ads to me and get your articles to Donald so that we can get this thing done and get it over to the printer. Chamber of Commerce, the next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, November the 16th. It'll be here in the Borough Building and it will be at 6:30. I will comment the Halloween parade went very well. I'm estimating about 100 to 110 children and that were in attendance, and it went very nicely. So glad to see that that took off well. Historical Society, the next meeting is going to be Thursday, November the 18th, here in our Borough Building, and the speaker is going to be Michael Francione. And he's done extended study on antique maps. We've had him here before, and he is wonderful. We really extend an invitation to all of you. Please come and enjoy these meetings. They're very, very good. And I thank Rhoda. She goes to all that work to get the speakers and set everything up. Thank you, Rhoda. Appreciate you. Twin Borough Ministries. The next community dinner is going to be on Wednesday, November the 17th. The date has changed because of Thanksgiving. So it's going to be 1 week before the last Wednesday. And it will be from 4:30 to 6:30. And this dinner will be hosted by the Riverside Community Church from Oakmont. They are still having homemade soups and they are going to be available. It would be wedding soup, navy bean, chicken noodle, and hamburger vegetable soup. And the price is still the same, $4 for a pint and $7 for the quart. Also, they have added homemade applesauce, and that's going to be $3 a pint. So it's good to support these people. They do a great job, and we all appreciate them. Under ALOM, I spoke with them recently, and they have extended the invitation to our board here. On Thursday, December the 2nd, the Pennsylvania Borough Association, along with ALOM, is having a general membership meeting. It's going to be held at South Hills Country Club, starting at 6 p.m. The cost is going to be $35 a person, and they will also be doing a toy drive. So if anybody's interested, the invitation is open, and they will need to know soon. They didn't give me a date, but you don't want to wait too long if you're planning to go. Just a couple quickies. On the time capsule, I wanted to mention Donald Wharf and I have been very busy pounding the pavement here in Verona. We've been getting business cards and different memorabilia to put into the time capsule. So that's going along quite well, and we're just about done with it. And if you have anything you'd like to donate to the time capsule, or if you have business cards, please make sure that either Dawn or I get them. We'd appreciate it. We want to fill that thing up. So 50 years from now, when people like Rhea and Kimberly and some of you other people, when you open it, and Trish and Joey, when you open it, you can say, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. So do give us some things to put in it. And also, I of course extend warmest congratulations to all the people that are going to be on the board with us. And to you, Nancy, I thank you so very much. You have done so much in this town. You've kept that office alive and going. If it hadn't been for you, I don't know who would have paid the bills, answered the phone, taken care of the window, taken care of everything. I thank you. I appreciate you, and I know that we all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia.
You are most welcome. And let's see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. I'll probably think of 10 other things when I leave, right? In closing, a very blessed and very happy Thanksgiving to each of you here and to everyone in the community, each of you and your families. And if there are any questions or comments, I'm glad to take them. If not, this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
You're welcome.
Mr. Matlin, anything from COG?
The only thing is there's, as I've mentioned at previous meetings, there's a meeting this Thursday night with the COG members, the member municipalities. There's 6 of us who are served by Lower Valley Ambulance Service, and to meet with Lower Valley Ambulance Service regarding their budget and their request for $12,000. So we're going to be meeting. I know there's several questions from different members. The last COG meeting, we talked about it, and we were all in agreement that we needed to get more information before making a decision about it. So if anyone has any questions about it was shared, I forget which, may have been the last October business meeting, but there was the distribution that Christine sent to everyone in your packets. So if you want to take a look at that, and if you have any questions about the budget that you'd like me to ask on Thursday, in addition to what I've already mentioned, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. But basically, we're just going to be looking for more detail on the budget, and in particular why they have a huge budget shortfall to the tune of almost $1 million, and they're only asking for $12,000 from 6 municipalities. It doesn't even cover 1/10 of that. So there's some questions there, and I'll report back with whatever we find out, and let everyone know.
When do you have to respond to them by?
I don't know if there's an official deadline, but it's something that if we're going to budget for 2022, that we would need to put into our budget before we pass the budget. So I don't, is that in there?
It's not in there.
Yeah. So, we had all agreed, and I'm talking we as in the COG member, you know, the representatives from each of the municipalities, we'd all agreed we wanted to have this meeting pretty quickly here to, I mean, some municipalities have already they're already partway through the budget, you know, review process, so it's not as easy for them to change that. But we wanted to have it as soon as possible, so that if we did need to make a change or use something, that'll obviously affect the numbers that Christine presents. So, yeah.
Sorry for the distracting cough.
All right, I've been dealing with cough the last couple weeks
No,
too.
This is just a fiber or something.
So that's all I have on COG.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So now we're on to new business. We have a few motions here. Matt. It's not helping. So Mr. Pitch already talked about this first motion. This is something that we've had on the books for quite a while, right, Matt? So we need a motion to
I'll make that motion.
do what it says under A.
I'm trying to save you from speaking. Motion to award the Wildwood Avenue culvert repair project to Pantina Landscaping and Construction, the amount of the $39,500, of which $23,349 is grant funded, with a local share of $16,152 to be paid out in 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, first by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Suchovich. Any other questions, comments about this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion B. And these three are all the same, except for we're changing the names. So can I get a motion to appoint Kim Roller to Shade Tree Commission?
Do all three.
Can I get a motion to appoint Kim Roller,
I'll
Rhea
make the
Homa,
motion.
and Bridget Siri to the Shade Tree Commission?
I'll make the motion.
First by Mr. Provenza, second by Tricia Showalter. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. And
Congratulations.
you- Couldn't find it, but I'll look again.
I sent it to my mom, so it's on.
And then, do you want to speak to motion number E?
Sure. So in that ARPA calculation, it's like mathematically, it's very easy. It's just a formula, throw numbers in. But the issue is having good data. And so I do want to, I've emailed Peter Vincere. I asked him, hey, what would it take for you to just give an assist on this, making sure that we're using the, best numbers possible. And so I'm just requesting that that somebody make a motion just so we can enlist Peter Vincere to, it's not even to perform it, it's just to assist in that, to make sure that we're using the best data. And, to pick some cost not to exceed. I can't imagine this would be more than a couple of hours of his time. I don't know his hourly rate, it's probably $150 or so. So, potentially up to $500 if a lift is needed externally to make sure that I'm putting good data into that calculation, because so much of our budget hinges on a good ARPA number and knowing that that's right.
So you want to put a cost of 500, up to 500 on that?
I think that's reasonable. It's probably gonna be way less than that. I can't imagine it would be more than, honestly, I feel like this is a simple question that would take him 20 minutes, but I don't know his schedule and I don't know how they bill.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, first by Mr. Suchovich, second by Mr. Warren. With the cost limit being $500, any other questions or comments?
I'll just add a comment. I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, just to clarify that Peter Vincere is the certified public accountant with Ozak Spec, who is the firm that we use for our DCD audit each year. So he's, this is absolutely his wheelhouse, and he's much more of an expert at this than any of us. So I just wanted to clarify who Peter was for anyone that forgot. I know we mentioned his name a lot early in the year, but it's been a while since his name has come up. So
Thank you.
yep.
Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. All right, at this point, there's no other motions that I'm aware of. At this time, council will hear comments on public related items. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand. Clearly state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come on up, Kim.
Hi guys, again, Kim Roller, 853 First Street. I have two things. One, I wasn't planning to talk about this, but I know we brought up a millage increase this evening. I'm looking forward to the full meeting about the budget because I am against a millage increase. As a newer member of Verona, I already saw a more than 60% increase in my taxes since the moment I moved in as to now, because you get reassessed and you go up a lot. So to be fair, by just increasing the millage, all you're doing is really going after the people who are brand new to the community that we're trying to improve, because they're the ones who get hit honestly the hardest, because they might be assessed at 50 when they purchase their home. They now have purchased it for 200, as some homes in Verona are going, and they're seeing a 75% increase. So my proposal to you guys would be perhaps look at reassessing a lot of homes in Verona and getting some of those to potentially be at a more level playing field, as some homes are assessed far below what their value is, and look at more than just increasing all of Verona's millage, and figuring out a better solution. Again, our neighbors in Oakmont are in the 3s and we're at 7.8. We're increasing on that spreadsheet that we just looked at with, the amount of Flanox and Etna and things of that nature. That would be just my suggestion to you guys, as a member of the community who already has seen taxes increase in the home that I purchased. But on to fun things. So I have a couple announcements to make for the Garden Club. One, Janet and Trish both talked about it. The Garden Club will be doing a green sale. That is one of our holiday fundraisers for the year. It will be occurring during the Jolly Jamboree. We'll have Fraser firs, mixed noble firs, boxwood wreaths, multiple garlands, white pine, door charms. They'll be posted on Facebook. So if you're not following us on Facebook, I would encourage you to do so, and we'll kind of be showing off some of those goodies. Additionally, we are going to be holding some workshops. And one of them is actually going to be at the fire department, fire station in their fire hall. So huge thanks to the Verona Fire Department for allowing us to use that space. We're going to have a gnome building workshop. So little garden gnomes made out of evergreen and some fun stuff like that, as well as a DIY wreath. That will be again held at the fire station. That is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So that's something that's a little bit fun, something new. The Garden Club is going to continue to offer workshops and kind of add some more value to what we already bring to the community. So that's it. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tim Long, 323 Penn Street. I'm just going to bring up the damage that happened to Cribs again. I know you said they're looking into it. We were up there Saturday morning and the downspouts were not damaged. They were damaged, but not as bad as they were. They've been caved in. Also, they were wood chips that were thrown into the bathrooms. So we were looking for kids that were in the playground picking up wood chips and then carrying them over and throwing them into the bathrooms. Again, they were not there Saturday morning. The bathrooms were locked. when we went up the line of field. And then when we got up here Sunday morning for football is when we found out all the damage. That's all I have to say.
I thank you. That's a
Thank
good
you,
starting point for a timeline.
Thanks, Tim.
Vince Flota, 323 Penn Street. I have a couple things. First of all, I'd like to thank all the voters for coming out to the election. And I look forward to working with council in this upcoming year to help move Verona, continue to move Verona forward. I would like to remind council about getting the picnic tables over to the pavilion in time for Jolly Jamboree. They've been removed from cribs. I don't know where they're at. I assume they're in the borough garage. And I also want to remind Matt about the freezer is still not back in cribs. He took the broken freezer to replace it, and I guess he was having a problem with the warranty or something. We had talked about maybe getting a bigger version for the same price.
Yeah, I think that's what the intent was. I'll follow up with him.
There is no freezer up there now. So
Okay.
I just didn't want the contractor to get paid and leave and
No,
us forget about
thank you
the
for
freezer.
that.
Also, I just talked to Castle Toys. Actually, Tim talked to Castle Toys today in Oakmont, and they're partnering with LVAF for Jolly Jamboree. We're going to set up a table to sell Castle Toys at Jolly Jamboree, and they're going to donate a portion of the proceeds back to LVAF. So we have that to look forward to. We will have that table over by the box truck where we will be playing movies for kids, like holiday movies going all day. Actually, when's it get dark now? 4 o'clock. So from 4 o'clock on. I also want to bring up, can we put the Lower Valley Athletic Foundation's meeting back on the agenda? I don't know why it was taken off. It is the first Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m.
So I leave that to council to decide if LVAF is an official borough group that would go on the.
Yeah, well, I mean, the community dinner's on there, and that's from the church. We're a nonprofit, just like the church.
I leave it to council to decide. That's not my decision.
Okay, well, it was on there last year. It was approved 2 or 3 years ago. So can we please ask council to put the LVAF meetings back on the agenda? Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. Yeah, no, sure.
Put it on.
So what day?
The first
First
one.
Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Currently, it's a Zoom only, but we will be looking to.
Okay, I see Dan Showalter has his hand up.
Yep.
Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Dan Showalter, 440 North Avenue. I would just kind of like to echo what Kimberly said about the tax rates. Unfortunately, past councils have mismanaged our money. And I myself personally would want to see 2 years of proper management of the money in this borough before we go around talking about raising taxes. Because unfortunately, past councils have not been responsible with the money. And until I see a responsible council taking care of our finances in a proper way, I don't think you have a right to come and take more of our money. Anyways, have a good night and thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else? Okay, before I'll take a motion to adjourn, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and a good holiday. And at this point, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
First by Mr. Suchovich, second. Second by Trish Reddick Showalter. Any comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, of course. Okay, thanks, everybody.